Hello, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Global Community Conversation with me, Kassim Kayiira, and the program is
Boys and girls, welcome to the Global Community Conversation with me, Kassim Kayiira, and the program.
Why am I getting a feedback? Isma, is that coming from your end?
No, it's from your end, sir.
No, the feedback was mine. It was mine. It was my YouTube one.
YouTube wejamoneka delay.
All
right. Bwana Hamisi, kama unanisikia tafadhali, please if you could put on your mic, otherwise huenda usiweze kuweza follow. Even if you want maybe to communicate, it might be difficult if you don't have your mic on. If you can just put the audio, that will allow you to be able to follow. All right, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Isma, when you're ready, just give me a heads up and then we'll just launch. Dear guests who have arrived, who are already in the conversation, please don't go away. We are just about to start. The technical issues, we just wanted to sort out where the clips that we are going to use to help enhance our conversation tonight. And therefore, we just need about 2 minutes only, and then we'll kick off, inshallah, once the studio is ready to be able to broadcast those particular clips, because they are quite critical for the conversation that we have or we are having tonight, inshallah. So I thank you for your patience and for making the time. On Facebook, actually, I need to get that link up because a lot of times we end up missing out on people who come and then admit. Okay, right. So for the new people, I think I see Sophia, I see Hamisi, I see Rad Karunji, very many new names appearing in the list, and then the usual suspects, the usual customers, the usual clients of this particular forum, where we enjoy our global community conversation. Welcome to the conversation. We shall be, inshallah, just kicking off. I was just waiting to get the clips loaded, and that will allow us to be able to have our conversation around a very big issue that is affecting hundreds, if not thousands, possibly millions of people across the world who have been affected by the issue that we are going to be discussing tonight. But it is not too late. There could be a way out of this particular situation. And through the conversation that we are going to be having tonight, inshallah, we will lay the foundation stones that may help those who might have found themselves in a dilemma, unsure of what to do, where to go, how to go about it, all in this conversation tonight. Welcome to the Global Community Conversation. This is Come, Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayiira, live on 75W Radio and live on Umma Connect via Zoom and YouTube, where we are actually flowing live right now, streaming live. Remember, you can follow the conversation. If you came in late or missed out on something, you can always catch up. Just look for Umma Connect and just look for the program. Come, Let's Talk with Kassim Kayiira. Tonight, a very difficult conversation that we are embarking on. The topic tonight is my child or our child, my shared right. Many parents, just as we start this conversation tonight, there is a couple that has probably just broken up. In that breaking up, sad as it is, probably throwing tantrums and shouting at each other, and then deciding who keeps the children. Police at this particular moment in time might be involved, standing outside the door, asking the man to leave, a departure that might be the last time he ever sees his children. These are stories that quite often, happen in our lives. We have had with people that we know, probably stories of people that probably we know, or probably that people that we don't know, that stories that have come into the public limelight, discussing a very difficult conversation, a conversation which was informed happily by a member who's just joined in, Abubakar Gariwango, mentioning last week, and it became really a basis of having this particular conversation, where whenever you get to a situation of unhappiness, when you fall in love and everything is all rosy, we tend to forget that when we come to a time where our patience is put to the test, where our resolve, where our understanding, where our humanity or humaneness is put to the test. A lot of times it is during those moments that the reality of who we are comes out. Children suffer the most in these particular situations because while husband and wife, while father and mother, you might have had your issues, the fight that actually goes on at that particular moment in time affects the children the most because if, especially in a situation where they are going to be denied access to one of the parents, most cases it's the husbands, it's the fathers who, are forced to move out and are unable. Of course, there are many, many irresponsible fathers who don't give a hoot about what happens. And therefore, while, you know, while you decide to break up, while you break up as a couple, already something is happening. Something is happening in terms of the children who are going to be the victims, who are going to pick up the suffering that goes with your particular breakup. So as parents tonight, inshallah, we are going to be looking at how we have ended up in this particular situation. So it is a story, it will be very, very good here. Isma, thank you very much. I saw your message. It will be very, very interesting to hear these kind of stories in terms of what your experience has been. Are you a father who has been denied access to your children by your wife? There might be those rare cases as well where it is a wife who has been denied access to the children. This often happens actually a lot in Africa. When you come to Europe, the situation sort of reverses because quite often what happens in Africa, husband, falls out with wife, throws the wife out, remains with the children, marries a second wife. Quite often, actually, by the time the first wife is thrown out or the second wife, there's already another wife in place, and therefore it's not even a question of bringing another wife. Quite often, there is another wife that is already in place. But even in situations where those children the wife is not in there, the wife is thrown out. The next thing is now husband gets another wife, and then the children just stay in. The wife might never get an opportunity to ever see her children again because it becomes taboo in some instances. The reverse is true when you come to Europe, where now, in case of a breakup, police comes by the door, throws out the husband, and then the children might never get to see their father again. What happens between the parents is the kind of words that are given or told to the children, quite often by angry mothers because of the disagreements that they've had with their husbands, with their spouses, telling children or involving children in this particular conflict, making the fathers, feel or seem like total failures in a situation that is very difficult. This has thrown many families in a dilemma. And if you haven't been in that situation, God forbid, may you not go down that road. For those who are already there, well, you're already living through that. How have you managed to cope? It would be very important to hear how many years it's taken the last time you ever got to see your children. What is going on in between? How much effort have you done? Try to at least get in touch. Because quite often what happens is some parents, like I've said, some irresponsible parents, fathers often, once they are denied, the rights at one moment, then they just give up totally. Have you given up or have you kept fighting? It would be very, very interesting just to hear these conversations around what has happened. But it might also be a wife who has decided to disassociate the children from their father with the reasons that she thinks are valid. It would be good to also hear your side of the story because quite often you cannot just judge one side without hearing the other side. It might be that what has happened between you and your husband, you and your spouse, is such that you feel that even if children are brought into this, there might be a danger that is involved in that particular case. So we are going to try to delve into this. Importantly, because at the heart of this saga that is happening are the children. It would be very good to hear from children. Probably you are grown up as adults, but had a particular situation where you were the child of a mother who could not see you. And therefore, getting that opportunity now, maybe to share your particular experiences. How was it for you? Did you try to use other means? Because now with technology, it just means that you might be able to access, someone without another person knowing. Did you eavesdrop? Did you cheat your way into the system managed to reach out to your father, communicated with your father without your mother knowing, since she doesn't want you to have anything to do with your father. It would be very interesting to hear your particular story, but maybe to just get us thinking and settling in while we are allowing more people to join the conversation. Let's watch this first particular video. This video is looking at the scenario of, a mother has been sent to jail because very recently the courts have started realizing, family courts have started realizing the kind of alienation that is many fathers are put to. As a result of this, the courts now are pushing for a new agenda, pushing for making sure that the child or the children can have access to their fathers. And in situations where the mothers become stern and stiff, refusing to cooperate in this particular way, this was one extreme case where the mother was sent to jail for alienating the parental, for alienating the father of her children. Let's watch this, please.
Overwhelming evidence presented against Sandy to convict her on the 6 counts of deprivation of parental rights. Sandy no longer understands what it means to be a parent, and therefore I do not believe she understands what she took from me, or more importantly, our children. To this day, I still do not understand why Sandy thought complete annihilation of our family was a good plan. She needed to first destroy me, the father of her children. In order to do so, she used our children, not appreciating that she was destroying them in the process. Nico was forced by Sandy to write false claims about me on his Facebook, which embarrassed our son with all his friends and filled him with enormous guilt. He was torn between the desire of trust and belief in his mother and his need to tell and finally tell the truth. He has done what he can to make sure his words, the words he knows, He has done what he can to make sure the world knows that the words on his Facebook page were not his. They were not the truth. They were his mother's words. She used him to try to hurt me, destroy my reputation, destroy my relationship with my children. I thank God every day that Nico and all our children are finally able to recognize the truth from the nightmare Sandy created. While I was following the instruction of the family court to heal our family, Sandy was creating an environment of paranoia and fear in our children. Sandy went to great lengths to convince our children that the world, that I was a monster. During this time, our children should have been focused on school, on their friends, having fun, and growing up. The time was spent being used by their mother to destroy their father. As to the long-term effect, what you did to our children, this will take them years, if not a lifetime, to comprehend the trauma and the pain you inflicted upon them. But sadly, our kids may be haunted for this the rest of their lives and will possibly never understand why their mother didn't just let them have the love and support of both their parents. You stole 2.5 years of their childhood from them. Time they'll never get back. Time will never get back. For 944 days, 2 of my kids were away from those who loved them the most. They were living in a desolate part of Minnesota with complete strangers. They didn't see a doctor, they didn't go to school, they didn't see any of their friends, and they didn't see any of their family. One of the worst days, during this 944 days my girls were missing, is when Trish Van Pilsen from Fox 9 showed up uninvited to my home. My daughters had been missing for 10 days, and law enforcement was working with me and my family to help find them. At the end of the interview, Van Pilsen told me that she had interviewed the missing girls, but She refused to share the information on the location with me and law enforcement. She left me helpless. Knowing that she alone could help bring me to my girls, yet hiding behind the shield of journalistic integrity, she had the power to end this nightmare in just 10 days. Instead, it lasted 934 days. Even after repairing all the damage to the home, 2 of our kids were still missing. Even when it was noisy in the house, there was missing 2 voices. Even when the house was full, 2 were missing. 944 days with 2 missing. It was a living hell, a hell that Sandy designed and built as a vehicle to battle her own personal demons and enemies she created in her mind. Received a phone call from the Lakeville Police Department asking me to collect DNA and dental records for my missing girls was one of the lowest points. The wave of reality that my girls may never be found, or worse, may never be found alive, became a sudden reality. I wish I could go back in time and get Sandy the help she needs. While she is my ex-wife, she is the mother of my children. I want them to have a mother who truly loves them, as the children should be loved by both parents.
I invite you to stand for sentencing. Why don't you come up to the podium, please? During this morning's hearing, I was deeply affected by Mr. Rucky's victim impact statement. First, Mr. Rucky, in his eloquent and heartfelt tribute to family, the strength of family, and to his children, described his relationship with the 5 Rucky children, the 5 Rucky offspring, who I have learned are vibrant and unique individuals, each in their own right. He lovingly described his relationship with his children, and he described the impact of the events that led us to this day. Mr. Rucky described defendants' acts as the annihilation of the family. Truer words have never been spoken. The senselessness of these events have haunted each member of the Rucky family since April 19, 2013. The pain and the loss that each family member has endured is beyond comprehension. My heart aches for you. We do not live in isolation, and surely we are all reminded today of the ripple effect that one life has upon others. I was also touched by Mr. Rucky's words about a family that endures, a family that heals from trauma and pain. This is never an easy process, and it's often a process that bumps along, lurches along, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. A sentence will never heal the wounds that Mr. Rucky and the children have suffered. A sentence will not bring back precious time that was lost and experiences large and small that you all should have shared together. A sentence will not take away that pain. Ms. Grazzini Rucky, the jury's verdict was clear. You were found guilty of 6 counts of deprivation of custodial or parental rights. During the trial, you claimed, and you have always claimed, that you acted in the best interests of your daughters, that you acted as a loving mother. If so, it defies logic that you left your 3 other children in the custody of the father you claim was abusive. Your animosity for Mr. Rucky robbed you of good judgment, and it robbed your children of stable sibling relationships and the important connection to their father during formative teen years. Your animus towards Mr. Rucky spilled onto others, including the professionals whose paths crossed yours. There is a saying, my way or the highway. And on April 19, 2013, you literally took to the highway with your 2 daughters because you did not get your way in the family court proceeding. And those 2 children remained missing for 944 days. The family is the cornerstone of our society. I'm not a psychologist, a social worker, or an expert on child development. I am, however, a mother, a grandmother, and a judge. I believe without hesitation that our community, our children, your children, need and deserve the guidance and love that a father brings to their lives. So, as to the conditions of your probation, first, you will serve 250 days in the Dakota County Jail. You will receive credit for 133 days actually served. By my tally, you have 34 days to serve on the original term of confinement, and you will be taken into custody today to serve the balance of this confinement period. You will serve 15 days in jail during each year of your probationary term.
And you can stop this, please. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. If you've just joined us, the conversation is already begun. We were just watching an emotional part of a father who had been denied access to his children, and as a result, the mother even actually now took children, left some other children because apparently the husband was abusive. This is one conversation where I think I come to the conversation as a free spirit, and therefore I'm not in support of whoever side, but rather, as we do normally, having a community, a conversation around the issues that affect us. This issue in particular, for those who have just joined us, there is probably a couple that has just broken up, throwing children away, and taking one of the couples, taking custody of the children and denying the other couple the access, the ability to be able to access the children. The pain and disaster of this is affecting many a community, and when it has reached our own communities, this is now turning into a cancer. Many, many families have been affected by this. It would be very interesting to hear your own side of the story. Probably it's someone you know, probably it's you yourself who has been denied access. Would like to hear these stories. Maybe you are a child who has become an adult now, but who came from a broken home, in which case one of the parents was either absent by choice or absent by circumstances. Let's hear that conversation. Remember, we are live on 75W Radio, as well as Umma Connect on Facebook, on Zoom, and on YouTube. Well, let's open the conversation now, and we just get talking, because that's exactly what we do. I've seen some new faces, and therefore I'll even rush very quickly to those, maybe to just get them into the mood, the feeling of the conversation here. We are always free. We just discuss. No topic is out of discussion. All we do is we just do it within the limits of decency, and therefore we do not throw abusive words around the conversations, but we discuss in a very mature way. Sophie M, I see it's probably my first time to see. If I'm wrong, you can, or is it Sophia Mrangwa that I'm confusing with that? Well, let's just hear from you regarding this particular conversation. Many people within our communities are getting affected. I'm sure probably you have a story to share.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa
barakatuh. Thank you very much for joining the conversation.
You're welcome. It's Sophia Mulangwa.
It's Sophia Mulangwa. Yes, when I saw the M, then I started thinking whether it was me confusing myself. Yes, no problem. I'm just asking now, is this a story that you have heard about at all?
No, I've not heard about that story, but
you have not heard about any couples breaking up and children being denied access to their parents or one of the parents?
No. It's a situation that happened to me, but it didn't end up in case in court and that whatsoever. No. But the children, people forget that the children are more affected than the husband and wife. Mm-hmm. Because when you break up, it will affect them emotionally, mentally, even school-wise. Because when I broke up with my ex, my son was mainly affected. And people don't understand, you denying this child to see their dad is a wrong thing. It's better you leave them, because his dad will always be his dad, or your mom will always be your mom.
What do you think motivates people to deny the parent, the father's access? Is it to just hurt them? Is it like revenge? Is it to show that they have the power? What would lead someone to want to go down that route?
Some I can't be judged. Some go that way because some men don't want to help, and as soon as you separate with them, they don't want to know. And in the end, the women get so upset and they're like, no, and then end up like it's not revenge, but they feel like they're left in this relationship to look after the child, and the dad is out there hanging around, enjoying life. You as a mother or as someone, you're suffering, looking after this child, and is not even bothered, not even give a call to the child, say, hi, how are you? Or this and this. They just leave the responsibility to you. That is how some women get really upset. And we can't judge. And at the same time, we don't know people's situations, but community-wise, people judge, our community. Once they see you've separated your partner and there is some misunderstandings going on, it's you've been in this relationship, both of you. No one knows what is happening within your relationship. But immediately they know you've separated, they start saying, oh my God, that woman, this, that man, everyone, no one knows what happened. And in the end, people are caught up in that mix up and you're confused, but they forget the children. They're affected more. Me, as a person, I was affected because I'd been with this person for 16 years.
Right.
But my child, even the school had to call me and they told me he's a quiet guy. He doesn't say anything. But they saw his performance. He's very intelligent, was declining. And he has never told anybody about I and the dad separating. But when they called me in school and I went to him, I just saw, this, like he was missing the dad, and I knew that. But he just broke up in tears and he told them, but they didn't know. And they said, we didn't know. Why didn't you tell us? I told them, I'm not going to go telling everyone my problems. But at last they told me he is not performing well. I think you breaking up with the dad has really affected him because they were very close, very close. And so as a boy,
did you stop him from seeing the dad then?
No, I never. But the dad was not even bothered. And it's sometimes they will say women are argumentative, women are this and this, but you can find women who are very calm and they take things in, they will just keep quiet. You break up with this person you've been with for a long period of time, and they do something to you that, like, we've separated, even I'm not going to see your child. They think they're hurting you, but they're hurting the child. So I didn't want my conversation to come out like this, but my son...
And I honestly didn't know. You see, the very interesting thing about this conversation is how you end up walking into a situation. Wallahi, I didn't know at all. I was just asking you for your view, and then to find that you have been down that route, I think in itself, is quite interesting. So maybe, and you shouldn't worry about this because we speak as a community. Ours is a global community conversation, and that's why we are free. No subject is out of discussion. How did you overcome this? Did he get to see the father? Did his studies improve then after that?
Yes, as a mom, we sat down. I used to talk to my child. We in fact, when you find us, you can think, oh, this is not your son. We talk, and I tell him, tell me anything. And we were both going through that break, that this person we've been with for a long time, he's gone and he doesn't want to know. I had to sit him down, talk to him, mother to son, and he did understand. And the school had to talk to him. And that's why we see our children out there. They run into trouble because there is no father figure. And then I had to call my brother back home to speak to him. We spoke, and he eventually understood, because I told him people break up and this happens. And for him, what really hurt him is the dad not coming to pick him up from school and is in this country. But I have to struggle, get somebody else, because I was studying by then, to pick him up. And at times I'll call people and they'll be like, oh, I can't. And then I have to pay someone else to go and pick him up. Yet the dad is even off, and you're aware he's off, and I'm not going to pick him up. But we don't have to judge women, and we don't have to judge men at the same time, because some men refuse to see their children. And those women who refuse their husband to see their children, it's a wrong thing, or their exes. It's very wrong. This child needs their parents, both of you. I'm glad of recently. I don't know what happened. I don't know, because I'm someone who doesn't go and start nagging you, come and see your child. It's easy. He decided he will come. We co-parent the child, and he's helping a little bit more than he used to do. But I didn't even bother.
That's a good ending to a difficult story, yes.
It is difficult. And at the same time, women, don't nag these people, because the more you keep quiet, you leave it to God, and at the same time, don't nag. But deep down, this person, you feel the guilt, and will come back to start and look after their children. That's the advice I'll give them.
Thank you very much, Sophia. And you actually open up a very, very big conversation now. I think in the chat room, Kayiira and Tege was saying some use the kids as a weapon to hurt the other partner, whereas others take full ownership of the children since the other party has walked out. So the conversation sometimes is the lead up to this. How do you, Sophia, just before I let you go, it's just regarding the preparation of the children. How long did it take for you to speak to your son about the breakup? Because you yourself, you are struggling with your own emotions, and yet now you have another person, another party to deal with, to bring into the situation. Given that you are struggling in your own way, how long did it take you to break the news, to get to speak to your son about the situation that was going on?
How long?
Yes, how long did it take you for you to have a conversation with him? I'm sure he was seeing what was going on in terms of your relationship with your ex-husband. But given what was going on, when did you actually have to sit down and talk to him? Was it after the school situation, or had you intervened before that?
Yes, before I intervened, but he wasn't saying much. And he was just saying, it's okay, mommy, it's fine. I know, I understand. And he was like, okay, mommy, now my dad has got another wife in Uganda. So when they have children, they're going to be my brothers and sisters. And I told him, yes. And he said, this is what I'm telling men. You should be careful. And he was like, I don't want them. I don't want anything to do with them. And I said, no, they will always be your brothers, and they always be your siblings. And it was because of hunger, his dad leaving him in this situation. He was heartbroken. And I told him, no, he will always be your dad, and he loves you. So we just have to continue with our life, and God willing, you go home, meet your other mom. And he was like, I'm not going to meet them. And I think that is what triggered all this anger. And he went to school, and he was like not performing well. And he's very quiet. And they saw him, he was isolating himself, not saying anything. Then after they called me, and I told them, I had to break up, emotionally break down, and they start crying. And then they said, oh my God, are you okay? And he started crying too. So I continued talking to him, and they gave him, like, he was in therapy, like they were helping him as a school for almost a year. They have to have them like their family, those who like the family break down and they're no longer living with their family members. They have a class and they talk about their feelings. They draw, and he was drawing. So because he loves, like he does poetry, loves poetry, he started writing in a poem, like how he felt, what he's going through. And then you bring those poems to me from school and you read for me, and I will tell him, oh, that is interesting. And then at times he will say, this is our story, mommy. And I said, it's okay, but you're doing a brilliant job. But now he's okay. He's 13 and he gets on with the dad because that's his dad. And for him, he once he wants to bring out something, he's not a good talker. He's a quiet guy. He brings it out through writing. He loves writing or singing or in a music way. So he writes about it, and other than speaking about it. And when he writes, then he would tell you, then you chat about it. But he's okay now. And I'm glad he's okay.
How long ago was this? How long ago was the breakup?
We broke up in 2017.
Oh, so that's about 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah. Yeah, but with 2017, that's when everything started went. We are still living together, but breaking up, like separating, was 2018.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we still stay together. I knew he loved his dad, although we had disagreement. I couldn't separate the two because I wanted him to be with his dad. But the dad decided that's it, and I said, okay, everyone went separate ways. And he didn't want to speak to me. He didn't want to speak to the child. After a few, like 6 months, he decided to come and see the child. And that's, yeah.
Oh, Sophia, thank you very much. This is a very, very powerful story. Have you been able to move on yourself? Have you found another man to move on? Because he got married and that kept him busy. Have you been able to move on?
No, because I've been studying, I've been doing my studies, I've been working, and I'm looking after my child. I thought rushing into relationship quickly, I was like, not at the moment. And this puts you off relationship, because you were thinking, I might find even someone who is worse than the person I had before. Yeah.
Okay. Barakallah. Thank you very, very much. I can see a hand up. Galaxy Note 10. Galaxy Note 10, please, if you can unmute yourself. Galaxy Note 10.
Hi.
Hello there.
Hi, this is Catherine. I'm not 10 today.
Oh, hi, Catherine. How are you? Is that Catherine from New York?
Yes.
Oh, asante sana for joining again. Welcome. Yes, you've been hearing, you've had the powerful testimony from Sophia, who has just been, discussing, giving her side of the story. First of all, regarding this family breakup, what is your take, in your opinion, is leading up to couples breaking up and then pushing people actually to deny children access or to their parents?
I'm going to give a personal experience with mine. I think, it's
I love those personal experiences. They are the real story. Yeah.
So I had my daughter's 18 years old now, thank God. But when I left to come to the US, which was 2005, I left my daughter back home. But even when I left her, she was with my parents. But I'd given, even giving birth and all that, I'd told the father that he had access to the daughter, especially that I was leaving. So, there's another parent to look after the child, right? So this was 2005. I came out here. I went back to Uganda in 2007. And by the time I went back, I was informed by my family he had even never gone to see the child. And remember, he hadn't been stopped from going to see her. He knew where my kid was. Everybody knew him. So they knew him. It wasn't a refuse or anything. But 2007, when I went, it's somebody who's interested. Oh, you came, can I come and see you? And all that time, which was fine.
How many years was that?
That is 2007.
Yeah. So how long between you leaving and going back, and he'd never been?
That was 2 years.
2 years.
Yes. Okay. So then I came back, but at that point, I'd also realized, okay, this is somebody who's not actually interested in what? In this child. But I'll give credit to the grandfather, his father. His father tried as much as he could to provide whatever he could, would send it to my parents somewhere the child was. And of course, I knew he couldn't afford to get it. But then as a father of a child, it's your responsibility. It doesn't matter what you have to take care of your child. So when everything happened, I realized, okay, you know what? Maybe this person does not want this child. Maybe this child is left to me. And I decided to bring my child to the US. Of course, I did not tell him I was bringing my child. I brought her out here, but when she came here, when she got here and she was around, he was provided with a number to call and check on her. And I can tell you the calls that I got from Uganda when I sending me money. Why would I send you money? You know, you had a child there for all those years and you couldn't even you couldn't even take care of. Of course, the calls ended again. Like I said, you still had access. We did not stop you from talking to her or calling. You did not call. You're only thinking about other things. As years went on and my daughter is growing, and of course, I never denied her telling her that, you know, somebody else is your father, anything. I never denied her. She grew up knowing that her biological father was not involved. And at 18 years old...
Has she asked at all? Has she probably at any one moment, you know, come to sort of sit next to you and say, can we call dad? Or that hasn't happened?
You know, the thing about it, and that's what I was going to come to, it's people who, let's say, when you're an adult and you have a child, you're responsible for your own decisions. You did not. So this child has grown up knowing that my father is not there. She won't even ask for him. Of course, sometimes we'll just tell her, you know what, let's call your father if you need this and all that. And she'll even tell you, no, I don't have a father. So she does not even seek, and we do not even push. You know, this is a decision she's making for herself because she's a young adult. And then it comes back because, you know, we still talk to her. I can give an example. Earlier today, I mentioned it and I said, you know what? I just wonder, and I feel like I need to inform these people and tell them, you know what? She's successful. She's a grown girl. She's in college, but she wants nothing to do with them. You know, she just wants nothing to do with them. But then what I'm trying to say is, it's parents. It's not only the women or men. It's parents themselves who choose what they want to do with their children. So we cannot blame the other person and say, okay, you refuse me, you stop me from seeing my child because of this and this. Their circumstances. Some of them just don't. They don't even try. You know,
but Catherine, you know, situations where, like, for example, mostly in our African settings, if, for example, she gets to a stage where she's getting ready to get married, for example, the father figure, you know, comes in. It's the father who has to give the daughter away. But how do you deal with that? It does seem like you have allowed her to grow in her own situation without you coming in with a push probably to see that the situation could change for the better.
But, I don't know if you've ever had this. Of course, it may be, you know, it may not be fun or anything, but have I ever told you that we the intersorts do not give away our children? So that one right there is a pure intersort. So if it comes to giving away, it's one of my siblings that's going to give her away because they've been there. You know, these are people who have seen her grow up. They've been involved. It's like, no, she doesn't have to go seeking anything that because she wants to, because of course the father is of Uganda, but then again, like I say, later, so we do not give away our children. She's ours and she has a place and she.
Understandable, Catherine. But now here is the situation, because has there been an effort at least to try to get other members from her father's family? Because it might be a careless dad. In the previous case that we've just had from Sophia, for example, the grandfather, who was it you was saying the grandfather took responsibility and was following up. At least to have a connection to the dad's family, because while the father might be the problem, whatever his irresponsibilities are, at least they shouldn't lose, you know, the touch with the family, with their
parents. But you also have to remember that in this era that we are in, there's social media. Yes. If you want to reach out to somebody, if they wanted to try, they should have done it. Of course, I've gotten what I got messages in the past, and they were trying to accuse me that I'm that will stop them from seeing how or communicating with her. I never did that. It was always open. It was always an open road. So again, like I say, as a young adult, you make your own decisions. I don't. My hands are tied. I cannot make decisions for my daughter anymore. And if she wanted to seek them and she wanted to look for them, there's social media. You can always go and look at where you have what, where do I belong or anything. You can't do that. I try to take my kids.
But Catherine, while you not make decisions, you facilitate, you create an enabling environment that would probably, because you might have had your disagreement with the husband or your ex or your spouse, but in a situation like this, what have you done probably to try to create an enabling environment that would help her to be able, to sort of look down that route? Because it seems like from your decision, you're sort of saying she can make her own choices, and therefore,
Yes.
like, have you thought about how emotional suffering that might be there? Part of that lack of other people.
One thing I can tell you, my daughter has been surrounded by strong men.
Mm-hmm.
So that gap that we always look and say, you again, like I said, you cannot seek somebody that does not want to be a part of you, because again, it's going to come back. And I'm not afraid, and I'm not afraid to say it there. And with our culture, where Ugandan culture, you're going to find it. There are parents that are going to seek their children when they eventually say they are successful. At this point, they're not. And that's why I'm saying that why should I even go looking for them or telling my daughter this and that? They should also be approaching and trying to find out and ask and be like, well, how's our child? How is this going on? So I'm not going to put myself in that position because I don't come from their clan. I come from my own family. So that is one thing I disregard, and I'm not going to be a part of it. You seek each other. If she decides that she's going to seek her family, it's okay. If they decide to come and say they're going to seek her, let's say if somebody called me today and told me, you know what, I want to have contact with her. Can we have all this? I'm not going to stop them. That is on them. I'm not going to take it upon myself to do it for them. That's the boundary that was already closed. Let's say how many years? About 13 years ago, that was already closed because I brought her to the US when she was 5 years old. So that gap was closed. So now, again, like I said, I never closed anything. They knew the numbers to call. They knew how to, but I'm going to tell you the most calls I got were like, can you send me some money? Like, no, I'm not sending you money because you don't belong to my family, because I have my child to take care of. But then that's beside the point. My daughter chooses to seek them, she will. They decide to come seek for her, they should. And it's up to her to decide if she wants to have a relationship with her family. Again, like I said, that is her family, it's not my family. I'm not going to interfere with that. So that is on them.
Sometimes there are certain things that follow us because some research has shown that there's quite often a ripple effect. You come from a broken home, somehow it goes into your own next life. As you create your own home, it becomes very easy sometimes to break up because you have a past experience that you're carrying with you in terms of that. Are you not worried about that? Yeah.
I do agree with you with that, but then we also have to remember that we parents sometimes choose to set our own children up for traumatic situations, because sometimes these kids are better off not knowing the other side of the family, because then you're opening up wounds that maybe
Yeah, but Catherine, that's their family though. That's their family. When you say
this is a good example I'll give you. Let's do this. This is a typical. In 2017, I was in Uganda. Like I said, I try to go home every year with my kids because I still want them to get that back home. And I actually took my daughter to see the grandfather. Okay. But up to today's date, she even still blames me for doing it because the things they did and the things that they did, of course, and she wasn't too happy about it, and she was just too angry that I even took her there. So even mentioning it and telling her that you go there, she wants nothing to do with it. My daughter has a Chiganda name, but she does not use it. She chooses not to use it. My daughter is supposed to be Muslim. She doesn't even want to associate with it. It's like, which is like, and then you still remind her, tell her this is still you. It will still come back to you. But it's like, again, when these kids grow up and they've been exposed to whatever they have to, they choose. Again, like I said, I'm not forcing her to do what she doesn't want to do. It's open for her. She knows her father's name. She knows her father's number, the last number that I knew. She knows her grandparents. She knows, who the family is. She can seek these people. But again, like I said, she doesn't want to. They're not doing it. Let it stay at that.
Force her to do that. So, Catherine, maybe a question regarding balancing your own personal emotions and a child's emotions. How do you manage that? I know women can multitask, but at the same time, I'm also thinking you have your own dilemma to deal with, your own feelings, and then having to manage the emotions of the child. How do you manage to balance those two?
To be honest with you, I think that's one thing that as a parent, and of course I look at my child and I was like, you know what, she has, you know, the biological father is not involved. But that's one person I don't even think about, because like I'm saying, this has been how many years? So I moved on, but I still know, even in the relationships I've had, it's like I have my kid and she's there with me. I have to do this, but she's the one I'm like, I have my child with me, and people know it. And many people that know me always say, oh, that's your handbag. Yes, she is. You know why? I try to provide as much as I can as a parent. And raising my girls, I've always told them that, you know, if you can't have it, it does not mean that you won't have it in the future. You have to appreciate the little bit that you have. So again, you're talking about the emotions. When it comes, you know, there's always, I need a father figure. I need somebody that I can talk to, because my mother cannot cover all the spaces and everything that's there. So I've always, again, like I said, my daughter is covered by strong men. I've even had that leeway. You can't talk to them. There are things that as a woman, I cannot. You know, and I'm glad I had with my ex-husband. He was, when she came to the US, she was young, so he's always embraced her. It's like, that's the one she actually calls daddy. When there's anything happening, she's calling him. Like, they have a very good relationship. It's one of those things, she's okay with it. And you know, with these things of going back to school too, she had, you know, we're having a whole discussion about, okay, are you going to school? You're going away to school. Some kids are going home with the what? Some kids are going away with their parents. They're out in school, but I'm glad I had somebody that I went with her. But that was all covered, because you have to show your children as a single parent, and I'm not talking about Marcos by that time, as a single parent that's raising a child that you had out of wedlock, a child that you're raising on your own. You have to show these children that, you know, you're not going to cover all the bases. You're going to try to, but we cannot take everything. We cannot do everything. Let's say there's a role a man is going to play, and there's a role a woman is going to play. I may want to act as the woman, as the man, but there's nothing I can provide her that the father figure would have provided her. So to protect that, you have to have somebody that's going to cover those bases, and so she's able to know and accept that, you know, this is how you're supposed to be raised, this is how a woman is supposed to be, and this is how I'm supposed to be raised as a child. So you have to cover those bases.
Thank you very much, Catherine. And actually, the conversation continues here. I haven't heard from the men. I think the men out there, you have few here. That's part of the difficulty, actually, that we are getting, that we get to such conversations, very sensitive, very real conversations that are happening within our own communities. And you find men missing out, always acting like they know everything, and we actually miss out. The women turn up, we have the conversation, they get the takeaway that they take away, probably deal with the situations that they are dealing with, and then they are sort of bettering themselves. I think for the men that we have here, it will be very interesting to hear your side of the story, just to hear what happens. And a personal story actually would be very good, especially if there is among us, even the women who are on here, if there's someone who went through that breakup, the lack of access, and what impact it has had on their lives. Raihan is saying it's important to have strong support for you and your children, which I think Catherine had from brothers and others. Thanks for sharing, because it's really hard to speak about these things to kids, especially when they ask you what they ever did their dad. Hajara, that is really quite a strong one. The thing with kids, they always think that it was their fault. That's why the other party left. It will be very interesting to hear that side of the story as well. Hajara, I'll be coming to you. I just wanted to get a man's voice in here so that we can continue with the conversation. The program is Come, Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayiira, and we are live on 75 W Radio, as well as Umma Connect on YouTube and on Zoom. Abubakar Galiwango, I'm trying to unmute you, please. You've been hearing this conversation. You are part of the reason we're actually having this conversation, because in your submission last week, when we were talking about a totally different thing, there was the issue that you raised when you said there should be consideration with parents for men when they are denied access to the children. Abubakar, are you able to speak? Hello, Abubakar. Can you unmute yourself, please? Hello, Abubakar. If you're still getting yourself ready, I'll just grab. I think I saw Sheikh Kawoya Abdul Qadir. Sheikh Abdul Qadir, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello, Sheikh Abdul Qadir, are you there? Was he listening from the background? Oh yeah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Sheikh, thank you very much for joining the conversation. I'm sure you joined midway, but you've been able to hear at least some of the submissions regarding this difficult but real topic that is affecting a lot of people within our communities. First of all, probably your own take. How bad is the situation? How many couples, I mean, for example, just in terms of even average, how bad is the situation of parents who have been denied access to children?
Well,
at least in Manchester, where you are at.
I think, as some other people, already mentioned, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad, and but it's also unfortunate. I think I should say, unfortunately, quite a lot of men or a lot of families do not come out to talk about it or to say what is happening to them. Particularly men, when they find themselves in this position.
Is that out of pride? Is that out of pride or?
Out of pride or sometimes out of shame. Mm-hmm. Okay, and imagine as a man, how could you go around telling others that you have no access to your children, or you've been denied access, or because such a thing really points, to one thing, and that is your inability to manage affairs and to manage your family affairs. So you find that quite a lot of people do not come out, or just keep it to themselves and suffer in silence. Number one. And number two,
is that an African thing or generally a man thing? That it doesn't matter whether it's an African thing or it's even within the West.
No, it's
men struggle to do that as well.
I think you're making a very valid point there, but it's mainly African and people from the East generally. We have Africans and people from the eastern part of the world have similar similar culture and similar behavior. But at this juncture, I was just only thinking about Ugandan men. Okay, we feel ashamed and all of that, so we don't normally discuss these things publicly. Okay, and but as we said, generally men are not willing, to talk about their feelings, their affairs, and that's a big problem. And of course, I don't know whether this is related to what we are talking about, but the fact that men do not discuss issues or are not willing to talk about issues, that inability to talk about things does cause the rift and cause things to go on, and situations to raise, and so that is a very that's a danger and a problem that we all face. On the other hand, here it's not we are not here to blame the other side or to blame women, but the fact that the fact that we as men or as families do not fully understand our faith, understand how fathers and should treat mothers and how they should behave properly, that also causes another problem. And a third thing is the misinterpretation of the role of women in homes, that also leads to the problems that occur. So when they come, when a man separate from a woman, by that time the woman has had a lot that she's not willing to engage because she has gone through a lot as a result of the way some of us behave in marriages and in homes. So there are a number of strands, so the number of aspects that we need to look at in order to to solve the problem. Because to us, we're only looking at the consequences.
Before you go there, I just wanted to clear this. When you say that women take some time before they make decisions, and when they make a decision to break up, it's the result of a lengthy process of evaluating and going through situations and assessing them before they make the decision to actually move on. I would have thought that in today's world, the level of patience, the patience gauge has gone very low, that women of today are not as patient to be able to hold it long.
Yeah, that is correct. But, for me, really, my point was that, regardless of the duration, but during that duration, whether it's a year, 2 years, 5 years, during that duration, you will find that men do make a lot of mistakes in the way they are dealing with the women. So by the time a woman makes a decision after 2 or 3 or 4 years, regardless of the duration, they're already fed up and they've reached a point whereby they are not ready to listen to whatever the man, says, and they feel that the man is totally useless, and they feel that they could, that the man doesn't deserve even, to be a father or to see the children.
Sorry, I had interfered with you. You're going to look at the ways of getting around that. Yes, please go ahead. I just wanted to get that out of the way so that we are clear on that, because it looks like today's woman is so impatient that the level of patience that probably we would have ascribed to our parents and grandparents is not the same level. But you say there's something that we can do about our situation now to stop the situation, getting worse than it already is.
For me, there are a number of solutions, of course, and that could be, we could look at different sources for solutions. But to me, I think the solution that we don't normally think about is returning to the true teaching of our various faiths. For Muslims, Islam, and for other. For other people from other denominations, is their faith, the faith base. So because if we really understood, when I talk, for me, I'm talking, from the point of view of Islam, if we understood exactly what Islam tells us in terms of the way we deal with one another, the way we should treat each other, even if we've decided to separate, the manner in which we should separate, the rights of the man and the woman, the rights of the man when it comes to the child and bringing up a child. We all know where a child should be, or who should be looking after a child between the age of 1 and 7. And after 7, who should take the responsibility? The issues to do with maintenance, because Islam also talks about maintenance. We should maintain, but unfortunately nowadays, some of the men do not want to provide any maintenance, to their children. So to me, it's going back, understanding our faith, understanding religion, the rules, and all of that. And if we are believers, if we have the faith, and we follow that, then we cannot go wrong. And
someone actually puts it in the chat room, says the problem of child support, when you add that. He says an uncle of mine deliberately chose to forsake his kids, citing when they grow up, they won't remember him as much as their mother, so let them suffer with their mother. That's an attitude from a father.
Come again. I think I missed something there.
No, I was just reading out a message there, because you're talking about the issue of support, providing child support and so on. And I just picked up on your comment, and I said, someone is already put in the chat room that child support is actually at the heart of the dilemma. And one person in the chat room says, when you add child support, an uncle of mine deliberately chose to forsake his kids, citing when they grow up, they won't remember him as much as their mother, so let them suffer with their mother. And that's an attitude of a father.
That doesn't. But I mean, should now the question we should be asking, and I don't know whether you've already asked the question, is suppose a mother stops a father, from seeing the children, from having any access and all of that. Should the father continue, giving child support, or should he use that as a means of, putting pressure on the mother to allow them access?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we need to look at that, or should we say that regardless, even if you've been stopped from accessing your children, you should continue giving child support, and regardless. So what is the right thing to do?
Barakallahu fikum, Sheikh. Now, I think it would be good just to sort of get a little feeling from a social services perspective, because it's the social workers who end up actually dealing with these cases. Raihan, I think you have some interesting points here that I'll come to you off the back of getting a social worker just to sort of see the cases they deal with and the dilemmas that come along that. Naima Kayiira, please, if you can unmute yourself, I'd just like to bother you just in terms of this, just to hear from a social worker perspective, the kind of cases, like what sort of cases you get in terms of the in relation to the breakups, but the percentage of people who don't want anything to do with the parents, with the father of the children. How often does that happen? If you can unmute yourself, please. Hello, Naima.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. How are you?
Alhamdulillah.
Hey, now where we are talking about a difficult subject that is really at the heart of what is going on a lot within our communities. First of all, what has been your experience just in terms of numbers of people breaking up but then denying access to one of the parents?
I think that number has been really high. But what is interesting at this time is how the courts are now really very strong on mothers who actually deny children access, because I think there's a study around their emotional well-being and how that's affected them, and how that has affected their identity as well. And that sense of belonging. So the courts are quite very strong now. That's what is interesting at the moment. People used to go and obviously apply in court, and women would come with excuses like domestic violence or various sort of reasons, which are genuine. But I think what the courts are also looking at is how they can make that safe. So you don't have to directly be involved in the contact arrangement, but someone else, a family member, is asked to step in and help this child build that relationship with the father. Obviously, fathers have, some fathers have not been really serious. You find that some children have gone to look for their fathers, and the fathers have turned out to be really very, I don't know what's the word, unrealistic, or really not responsible at all. Given that they've started a new life, they don't want to know about this family, and actually the children suffer. The children really suffer. I had never known the impact of it until I've worked with it, and how the child feels rejected.
How do they suffer? You say you had never known the impact until you worked. Maybe you might not go into the specifics of particular cases, but maybe as a general aspect. What sort of suffering, what form does the suffering take?
You find that they have, these are children who come up with behavior problems. Most families that haven't got that father figure, to be honest, the mothers, I know mothers, some mothers are managing, not because out of what their own liking, but because of the situation, they've separated and the man doesn't want to know and things like that. But at one point where there's no father figure, something that really affects those children in a way that they emotionally, they start having behavior issues, they start having issues around following guidance, following advice from their mother. But that's why obviously when we're doing our assessments, we normally look at anyone within the family who is supportive, anyone who obviously can talk to this child, the child they look at, someone in the community also helps these children in a way, like youth workers or anyone they work with, or anyone within school as well. There's a way a child feels they want someone to guide them. We may not see it as really important, but I think parents should start thinking about it. That the person who really suffers in all this is the child. They really suffer a lot.
How much effort have you seen like fathers putting in trying to get contact in your line of work, as part of the working? How much effort have you seen like fathers who have bothered, who have taken it upon themselves to try to see that they can get in touch with their children despite being denied that right?
I've seen fathers who have gone far and gone and applied for what's called a child arrangement order to gain access, and they've granted them that access. They've been family mediation within court, and the mother somehow frustrates the whole process. So most of them would obviously seek for the support, the financial support from fathers, which some won't give and others would give. There are fathers who, for some reason, the mothers have this sort of grudge or have this sort of anger towards them, that they will really frustrate the whole process. Yet this father genuinely wants to have that contact with their daughter or their son. What I know from my experience, if fathers continue to show, it may not, the mom may frustrate the process, but if for some reason you could get one of the members, family members, and show this child that your dad is there, simple things, letters. I know people think that's a waste of time. You write letters, even if they don't read them, but they know that dad writes me a letter every month or does this, and auntie so and so keeps it. They know that you are bothering, and at one point they will come around and look for you. Although mom is really making it hard, they will really come to understand that this is a father that really cared, even if he had no access.
What satisfaction would the woman get in denying the father access to the child?
I don't know what satisfaction they get, but what I know, that out of their selfishness, not understanding that as they are really trying to frustrate this man, that actually they are hurting their own child. That's what I have found out. I don't think there's anything they gain from that. And the men, what I found out as well, where there have been allegations of domestic violence or, well, sexual abuse, you cannot have contact with children until they are above 18. That one the law will not allow you access to any child you have sexually abused. But for the sibling, somehow you could have like supervised contact. You're not allowed to have any unsupervised contact with them. So the men would really, they're quite, when women allege things, they sort of shy away. Police, but I'm telling you, if you seek legal advice and go through the right channel and show your intention, you want, the courts are really strong on the fact that children have to have that relationship with their father. Children have have suffered really, and they're starting to acknowledge that. I remember when I started practicing, if you went to a child and spoke to the child and the child said, I don't want to know, he's never been there in my life, and you just write a statement to court and say the child is of an age where they can make their decision, but the judge will have strong words with you and tell you. So if a 12-year-old and an 11-year-old or a 13-year-old simply tells you they don't want to have contact, so what do? You just, I found it really interesting that the judges are really strong, and that you as a local authority must make efforts to make sure that there is some form of contact between this child and their father. So that's the most interesting thing I have found out now that's happening.
Thank you very much, Secretary Naima. And I can see a lot of conversations now going on in the chat room as usual. Some men look for an excuse to give up. Teri Musajja yagala mwana we that would give up easily, says Umma Raihan. Sophia comes in to say, I think she's the one who mentioned about the child support. Faida Ntege said some men don't have patience fighting to get back the child. There's nothing to be gained, but the system would work better if they supported the mother better during that emotionally charged people. That is from Raihan. Zahira is saying, but don't forget mothers also might need time to heal or comprehend the new situation. Definitely. Great point. I believe the system also supports more single women. Brilliant. I would like to hear from the men. The men are very quiet at this particular stage. Isma, please, if you can prepare us the second clip, just to sort of show the emotional suffering that the child goes through, because at the heart of this, while the man is hurting, while the woman is hurting, following their kind of disagreement and breakup, the child at the center of this is really one of the biggest victims, because they are not the reason for your disagreement, and yet they have to suffer the repercussions coming from this particular disagreement. And that is absolutely, absolutely, absolutely important. I've seen one new face that I would like to, Umma Raihan, I'll come to you. I just wanted to see Joy Mutesi. Joy, are you in a position to speak to us? Welcome to the conversation. This is our global community conversation here. Come, let's talk with me, Kassim Kayiira. And we are live on 75 W Radio, as well as Umma Connect on YouTube and on Zoom. Joy, are you in a Joy Mutesi? I see you are you're a new person to the conversation. Are you in a position to speak to us at all? Joy? Okay, I'll go to Umma Raihan. Umma Raihan, please, if you can unmute yourself. You've been raising important issues here. You are really in fighting mode, as usual. Maybe just to on the situation itself. Welcome.
I'm not in fighting mode. It's not fighting mode, but
so fighting mode just in terms of the arguments and conversations going on.
Yeah, because I think it's a very pertinent topic that we're talking about, and thank you to Sister Naima for bringing it to the fore. I think my observation is that yes, you're right that when there's a breakup in any union, there's obviously a lot of very raw emotions and things, and usually kids get caught in the crossfire. And whereas it's easy to say that people should be rational, the truth is very few people, can just sort of be objective within that particular space. So I do not advocate for either spouse, refusing the other spouse access. I think it's very important for children to have access to both parents. That's right. But I also think sometimes what I have had in my experience is, even when the breakup is not acrimonious, my experience has been that the male partner normally, they want to be chased around. For example, like, Ntimwina Abana, you know that you've broken up with this person, there's been responsibilities. For example, let me give a simple example where you've been sharing the school run. For example, now you don't live in the same household, but the kids still go to the same school, right? Because Maya Ukanye, somebody wants you to beg them, can you please go pick up the kids? But the kids still go to the same school. And for example, if you had the previous arrangements of pick up and drop off, so during this sort of what you call probably transition. The situations I have come across is like that bit extra, because normally as a woman you want the father of your kids to be in their life anyway, you know, because I think a lot of women will stay in very toxic marriages to gamba for the sake of the kids. That's, you know, that's always an excuse we give anyway, regardless of whether it's a healthy union or not. So in most circumstances you want that man's presence in your children's lives. But then when you break up and then somehow this person takes it as an excuse to sort of slack off. Kajate, you take the slack, and everybody says, but it's not necessarily true. Sometimes, for example, if you've left the kids one too many times at school, and it's been your chance to pick them up, I'm going to go to the school and say, well, because you have proven yourself to be responsible or unreliable and to not provide, you know, that constancy, you know, you need that sense of consistency, whatever. I mean, this cuts both ways, even if it was the lady that was the other end. But normally, because most of the time women are the primary caretakers, you know. So my argument is, at any rate, one should have access to both parents. But in my experiences, men are very quick to kind of look for an excuse, like a loophole. Afuna kantu katonyo keye kwaza, you know, najako pedo, najako pedo kugasagama no kambareke. And I have personal experience of this whereby it wasn't even like it's been more like a long distance union, and you have these absentee fathers. And for example, when you have a case of an absentee father who's only in the child's life for a specific time, now even within that period of time, can you please get involved in your child's life? Do you know what I mean? Tomuganye, it's an open case. You've never put up any barrier that do not do this, do not do this, do not do this. And then some men just take that, I'll come in, you know, as and when. So it becomes a case of when it's convenient for me, if it doesn't suit me, then I'm not in. And that's not always good for the kid as well.
There are times when you listen to some aspects of a conversation and you feel like you're boiling, because like I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of this person. I'm trying to get into the mind of this person to try to understand. What would happen to you that would really make you hate your own blood? Like, is it because we don't feel like we got loved as children, and therefore we cannot give out the love? Where do you think this comes from?
I mean, there is that. I think psychologists have told us that we are a sum of our childhood experiences, but obviously as we get older, as we become adults, then we have the choice of whether to replicate those childhoods or to choose a different path. But then again, not everybody has that sense of awareness of themselves. You need a certain level of self-awareness to understand. Just because your life was shaped by this experience, it doesn't mean you need to replicate it in your own life. That is a personal journey. That is like a personal development journey. Nobody can do that for you. On the other hand, some of this is childhood trauma. Especially in African settings, some of the things that are viewed normal in our cultures, but psychologists would call them trauma or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So these are all experiences that are embedded in us. But having said that, at the end of the day, like I say, you come back to a place where you have to make a choice. Not just even like one or four kids, but he's literally taken the road that like Awaza, then they break up, and then he moves on to the next one, you know. So he has loads of his mashallah, he's a really good sperm donor, he's done his job. But you know, if you do ask him, he goes, you know, and then it's unfortunate that these kinds of scenarios are more common within our faith as Muslims, because I suppose because our men are given, you know, that space, that freedom to choose more than one spouse. Then, but not every man is actually responsible enough to actually know how much power that holds for them and how much responsibility that means. And I think a lot of them do it just for the satisfaction of the self, but they don't think about how does this add to us as a unit. omusajja yeewasiza tawasiza family ye okiraba. So if you're bringing in a new party, whatever it is, you're thinking this person again akunsanyusa, but what's the consequence to my other family? So these are all, it's like a very dimensional thing.
And what's the way out of it? Because the more multidimensional you make it look, the more difficult it becomes to do. It looks like actually it almost has to be a case-by-case basis to be able to.
It is a case-by-case basis. I don't think you can generalize because they are genuinely people that break up, and even through the pain of heartbreak, because personally I don't think anybody takes breakup of a marriage, especially a marriage, lightly. I think it takes a lot for either a man or woman, if they've been in a relatively long stable marriage, to actually say this is it, for whatever reason, to step out, because you've invested quite a bit of time in that person and resources. I don't think it's as easy as people make it sound. People you invest a lot of yourself and your dreams and your hopes in somebody. So by the time you decide to step up and let it go for whatever reason, you're like at the point of no return, whichever. So it is always going to be an individual thing. But I think the circumstances, I think as a foundation, as a basic, as a rule of thumb, every child should have access to their parent. My argument is, if you break up, leave the door open for either spouse to be involved. But I also take the view that it's not the job of the spouse who has the primary care of the children to then come and chase after you. These needs are still there, whether you remain their father, whether you like it or not. That's one thing. And I think the other thing that is making it even worse now, in an era where most of us women are working, we are sort of more financially independent. We find that tetweguya, you know what I mean? So you're like, okay, we shall but I'm not going to call you, because the more you actually keep that communication, it becomes almost like another excuse to argue, to almost keep that person, within the picture. Naye bw'omusaba ssente amata g'omwana once or twice n'agaana n'omwesonyiwa. You move on, they move on. Now it's their job to know that bazaala abaana and these kids need milk. And unfortunately, nobody can school them on that. Okujjako azzeyo gye baamukuza, or they've had a good sense of personal self-reflection.
Because we have been using parents, we've been hearing from the ladies, we've had a few men, and I'm still bothered that they're just very few men. I would like to hear more from the men as well, especially because there are some, and when this topic came up, quite many actually reached out and said, this is an issue that personally, affects me, and I thought they would come up to sort of have a conversation around that. But again, it's either the ego, it's the shyness that is holding them back. But we were saying at the heart of this conversation are children who end up suffering in most cases. Kayiira, I think you make a very interesting point when you say, I understand some of the emotional effects. I did grow up with my mother. Now I don't know if she fought for me, but I'm now asking myself if she even tried to make arrangements. Zahira, you are on. Assalamu alaikum. Hello, Zahira. Zahira, you are unmuted. Hello, Zahira. Hello, Zahira. Are you able to speak, or are you at work? I've seen your point, and I thought it was a very interesting point that actually we could just delve a little bit into that. Hello, Zahira. Are you there? Can you unmute yourself, please? Or okay, Isma, if you're ready, if you can just have that clip, and that would allow us now to prepare and go into that last final phase to see what we can do about this. I was hoping to have a lot of men coming out to talk about their issues. From the sound of it, again, the women are here. They are raising very pertinent questions, very pertinent points that actually suddenly make the men look like we are actually in the wrong, rightly so. So I don't know. I would like to hear from the men as well, just to hear your side of the story. Yes, let's see that, Isma, if we can just watch that.
Even very brief separations are stressful to infants and young children. Our sympathetic nervous system kicks in and impels us to try to cope with this separation by calling for the parent, crying, getting upset, signaling that we need the parent back to be our source of security and safety and regulation. It begins to damage brain cells. Hippocampal cells will die, that's our memory center. The electrical activity in the brain is being reduced by these more prolonged separations.
The other thing that's affected in the brain is the amygdala. It's the fight or flight center. So when you've got this really overactive amygdala, the ability to be able to evaluate risk, make good decisions is compromised. Not only does it affect the architecture of the brain, but long term it affects health and early death.
Is the foundation on which we build our exploration and our autonomy and our curiosity and the cognitive skills with which we're going to negotiate the world. It's a very fundamental system to protect, and it's foundational to many of the child's developmental achievements. Time is very important when you're dealing with very young children because you begin to see this deterioration fairly quickly. The idea that you're going to hold a young child away from the parent for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks is an enormity of time for a young child. They just know that the parent is absent, and that can be equivalent to the parent basically being dead or having abandoned them. One of the things we see in children reared in institutions in the first 2 years of life is that the attachment system goes badly awry.
Ultimately, that relationship with the caregiver predicts the kind of interpersonal relationships that the child will have as they get older.
It's very important if we want to prevent later very problematic outcomes for these kids. The younger the child, the more urgent it is.
Recovery is certainly possible, but I think the prognosis for most of these children is they're not going to be okay.
Well, you can see now the impact that we were talking about, what comes into play in these particular situations. Zahira, I wonder if you are able to come on now. Joy Mutesi, I got your apologies that you're at work, you can't speak. That is understandable. Abubakar Gariwango, you came on and you have been unable to be there. Abubakar, are you there? Hello, Abubakar. Hello, Abubakar. Are you able to unmute yourself? Okay, let's go to Mr. Chiwanuka. Chiwanuka's iPhone. Chiwanuka's iPhone for the men. We've had a lot from the women raising these particular concerns. Very valid points. Many that we have actually interrogated and found that there is a basis for some or for many of these particular issues that are coming up. First of all, your take maybe. Chiwanuka? Hello, Chiwanuka's iPhone. Are you able to speak? What suddenly happened to the men? They've just gone all quiet now. A difficult conversation, one that is rare actually not to have a particular say on the situation. Chiwanuka, are you there? Gariwango, unable to? The silence is very loud. Okay, let's see. I think I saw Alia's iPhone. Alia, I think you are new to this conversation as well. Just like to bring you in just to get your take on the situation so far. Alia's iPhone. Hello. Alia's iPhone, are you there? Yeah, do not worry, even if you want to speak in Luganda, this is never a problem. You can actually, because our conversation is basically a bigger conversation. Chance K, sometimes you always come in here to the defense. I've seen you trying to make some case in the chat room regarding what needs to be done, but that was a softy approach on a very, very difficult subject. Chance K, are you there? Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, KK. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, it's so quiet from the men. The women have really brought up very serious issues that are actually becoming, issues of concern, issues that are at the heart of what is happening. Children suffering as a result of the breakup between men and women. While they have every right, they can have the right to disagree on how to agree on how to disagree, or even break up, because after all, life is not a prison. Relationships are not prisons. But in a situation where children have to suffer or end up suffering, then definitely I think something has to give. Therefore, the point we were raising here, one, in terms of these cases, have you had many of these cases around you? Cases of breakups and then denying one of the parents access to the children. Is that something that is familiar to you?
Yeah, I've had friends who have been involved in such scenarios, and to me, I know it's a constant theme within our community that we have breakups. But my focus is why don't we learn from the mistakes, the root cause of these breakups? That's my concern.
And according to you, what's the root cause of these breakups? If that's where we have to start from, then
yeah, the root cause is the ego. I'm going to talk about, to be personal, but I'm going to speak my mind. If we base it to our community here, you see that we have different egos, and we really fail to understand each other. We can say we are married, but we're not friends. And to me, no matter we are married and we're not friends, then I don't see it as a bed of roses. At any time, someone will fall off, and the end result will be a big price to pay. And that's why you see there is a lot of breakups, and the kids are within the crossfire. Another thing is culture, because we get entangled here because of convenience. I don't marry you that I really love you, but I marry you because of convenience, the situation. Maybe I want papers, or maybe I'm lonely. And no matter how long we are into it, if we don't see any value attached to it, then I'm not surprised that at one time we need to end up living together. And there is this thing, I don't know whether my understanding is different. There is the most reason I see why we end up into downfall of our relationship is either mostly ladies complaining that my husband has gotten another man,
and another woman,
and I saw another woman, and and my question is, okay, let me squeeze it to the religious part of it, like the Muslim circles. You talk about like a man, you know it, that a man may be having 4 women, and there are terms how he can get the 4 women. You have it in your head, but why should this be the cause for your breakup? And you've invested in your marriage for 16 years. I don't get that. I understand it's painful, but look at the bigger picture. Put your kids into perspective that, oh, if I break up, I know. That's why I say that, because of our empowerment, unable to control our ego, gender balance, all these challenges are squeezing us in a corner. And that's why you see, like, if you consider the situation here, women have a higher voice, and because it's a leveled ground, so they're not gonna listen any bullshit, or I'm not gonna come. If you don't come, okay, I can look after them.
Is that a threat to men? Is that a threat to men?
To me, I wouldn't see it as a threat. It's just I'll term it like lack of communication. You know, that's the ego. The critical thing is we can't put our egos together, and once they can't be together, then we fall apart. Either because they are driven because of financial status or culture or peer influence. You hear cliques of ladies who are single, they try to give you words to put you out of your marriage when there is no cause, you know, because whether you break.
Chance, it looks like Sophia Murangwa wants to speak to you. Sophia, your mic is open. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Actually, I'm just to let people know, my ex, I wasn't bothered about him getting how many 4 women whatsoever, but the situation is, you get women, we accept that. But the fact that when you get another woman, you turn around and you change your behavior, you start denying the old one, saying, I don't want to be with you. If someone comes up and tells you've been with them for 16 years, 17 or 20, I don't want to be with you, I'm going to move to Uganda with my new wife for good. So you're going to follow this person? That's the question I would like to ask this gentleman. Or if they're here and they don't want to be with you, even if you've invested in your marriage for how this long, you're not gonna stay in the relationship where someone doesn't like you.
Sophia, and Islam is very clear. Actually, you have to be just, and that justice means you have to treat them equitably, not equally, but equitably. Everyone within their means. You cannot marry a new wife and then forget the old wife or mistreat the old wife. In fact, if anything, the old wife now even needs much more treatment because you have brought a new challenge to them if you're going to go down that route. But it's not for the faint-hearted. We are different. Some men will be able to do it. Some men won't be able to do it. It's not a must. It's not an order. It's an allowance within particular rules and regulations that must be fulfilled to be able to do it. I get your point, Sophia. Chance, you have had, just the circumstances surrounding that. The issue is, once you get married, the excitement of a new bride takes away all the relevance of the older, including the care that should be, given to them duly.
I'll term it as rebranding. Men were not perfect. We try to be perfect. Some are dogs, some are very supernatural, So
supernatural how?
No, some are within the line. Not all men like they are seen as bad. Some are good, I would say. But what I'm saying is, if a man leaves you, that's very hurting. If that's the term he puts, that I'm going with my new coach because I've maybe rebranded myself and I don't see any value in you. To me, what I think is, especially in our community, we try to neglect the influence of external forces like marital counselors, which is very vital here. And because most of our breakups are very small things. If we involve these counselors or experts, you see that the bridges will be made and there won't be this hassle.
Yes, well, that's understandable. Thank you very much, Chance. Probably for the men now, holding the fort. Julian, I can see you on here. Julian, are you the counselor that I know? Oh, Julian, you've been listening to the conversation so far. What's your take? Why are people deciding? Why are women especially deciding to deny access to children? Julian, are you there? Hello, Julian. Okay. Amina Nachiaga. Amina, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Welcome to the conversation. You've entered late into the conversation. Oh, and I can see Aisha as well with your hand up. I'll be coming to
nyingi deleting njagala kutoka kuwuliriza ekigenda mu maaso naye I think good mwami Chance K ebigambo byayogedde I don't know I think he represents the men. This is a painful conversation. He's highlighting the reasons why men marry us. Awadde ekyokulabirako convenience empapula. Sincerely speaking, as Muslims in these circles, why do you go to someone? You know, we are women with feelings. Then you come with your agenda. Do you declare it into convenience or these arrangements? Where are they accommodated in Islam?
They used to. Amina, they used to be accommodated, but it was for a very temporary phase, and then they were made haram. It is actually called the mut'ah, where you marry a woman on a contract, but that is no longer valid in Islam. So if I can be honest about it,
you come and marry us for convenience, for popular. Do you table this on the
Amina, if I came to you and I was honest about it, would you take me in?
No, I'm going to take you back to obubonero bwatugamba omukyala ebina omuwasiriza obulungi bw'emmaali ye n'eddiini ye empapula zijjiddewo wa. You know, that's very decent. And better your way you can be there, but now someone is child.
Yes.
You
don't play with people's emotions.
Yes, sincerely, situation ekituufu naye nkyagadde nti oba kimusimatuse naye nkyagezezaako okutubuulira ensonga ezimu lwaki abasajja abamu bawasa abakyala era
he decided to come.
Yeah, kati y'ensonga lwaki batuuka ne basaawo embeera yebanyigiriza kyoboolaba n'abakyala bagala n'abaana baabwe amaking sure ne custody eyo tagikuwa kubanga abeera really oba omulumiza omutreatinze nga just ekintu ekya bulijjo ekitalina feelings oba tassa oba takola ki kubanga oli ku convenience ate ye ataddewo omutima gwe ffe abakyala we come with our heart. So nkyagadde nti akyogedde naffe abakyala ekyo kitugula amaaso nti maybe abantu abamu bajja gye tuli olwabino ate baagala tubagumiikirize nga bawasizza abakazi abangi awo waddira ku ddiini naye nga gwakuwasizza si mu ddiini. So however painful it can be obufumbo tubwagala naye omuntu nga bw'abazze katutegedde ebimu ye convenience n'empapula instead of going through that pain tusobola okukyesonyiwa nga bwe tusaba Allah atuwa ekisinga obulungi. Otherwise along the line kiba kibi nnyo laba tubeesasuliza mu baana kubanga mba nzudde obunnanfuusa obusembayo naye nga mwebazizza mwami Chance K okwogera ebintu ebyo kugamba naffe ng'abakyala bituwa ekyokwekyekinga okumanya abantu betuwangaala nabo omuntu obeera naye emyaka 7 myaka 10 naye nga obadde ku projekiti ya mpapula tuzadde n'abaana ali ku convenience kyendowooza nti byebintu byetulina okwekyekinga naye nga
absolutely. Barakallahu fikum, Amina. Barakallahu fikum, Amina. I can see many hands up. Aisha, Nawinya, let's start with you and then I'll come to JFK. Chance mkono gwako mie hodda kubanga. It looks like you've opened up a can of worms, but touching the real issues that people don't necessarily want to talk about.
Hi, Susanna.
Aisha,
Sheikh Kayiira.
Salaam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Webale tuweereza ssebo webale topic
nungi.
Kati nze njagala okwongereza ku mwami oyo avaako kyayogedde ensonga nkulu gy'akutteko agambye ego eyo yo ndowooza nzaale Sheikh Kayiira mu baami baffe wanje
ego etali kamunye agamba
yes etali kamunye muli okubeera nti yes ey'obusajja mwemmaani era ffe abasajja tulina kuba bwe tutunye bwe tuti eyo ensonga nkulu nnyo ate eremeddemu okusingira ddala mu baami baffe kati ate etujja mu ensi bw'esigalawo tejja kukola era impactinze nnyo relationship omwami n'omukyala naye ate engeri gye tuli ku kigambo ky'abaana okuba nti tuba denyinga contact eyo nayo negenda mu maaso naye affecting abaana era nga bwe tubadde tubiwulira kati ensonga endala gyakonyeekera gye njagala okwogera ey'abakyala abangi nze nsuubira nti ng'era b'ogambye obusiraamu bugamba nti wasa abakazi bana bw'oba onoobasobola bw'onooba obayisa just bw'onoobeera fair to them naye ebiseera ebisinga ekyo si kyangu era omuntu tagenda kwagala mukazi oyo omu asooka nga love y'emu n'endala kaakati awo ku sayidi y'abaana bano ddala be tuzaalidde mu ensi balaba abaana abo bafuna kye bayita resentment nga balaba nti taata ali eno kubanga bino ebintu bye bakola bo abaana tebabimanyi ogenda omutunuza ne mu Quran egambe nti era ajja kubatolinga naawe agambe but they say marry if they are fair naye ebiseera ebisinga abaami bayinza obutabeera fair kati omwana oyo n'agenda ng'akula nga n'omuzadde tannasalawo okuleeta distance wakati w'omwana ne taata we omwana yennyini ayinza okucreatinga already bridge kubanga alaba
Mchara Stella Wanterema in the chat room is saying some men want a wife and the benefits that go hand in hand with having a wife, but they are not prepared to be husbands or go through the process of transforming themselves into husbands. Where is the meeting ground of that?
Kati abo nze musaali yange nandi balowooza nti oba bakyalimu okwagala okuba nti balina ba companions oba omuntu gwayagalako katono kati oyo aba tannaba kuba ready kubanga bw'ona becoming a husband kiba kitegeeza waliwo responsibility ezigenda okujja n'oba husband okuzaala ku baana owulidde kaakati bw'oba owulira nga tonnafuuka husband gw'ogira osigalayo mu bwamalaaya bw'otambula eyo ebbali then bw'onootuuka okubeera husband then kubanga okubeera husband kujja ne responsibility mwe muli abaana of which abaana bajja n'emirimu gyabyo kati nze nandirowoozezza nti omuntu alina okubeera ready in mind okubeera ddala mwene ensi gye tulimu okubeera nti oli ready okukola ky'okufatheringa omwana oyo okubeera husband kuba omwana bw'anajja tasuubirwa nti ogenda mulekera mukyala yekka kubanga bw'oba omulekedde omukyala then obuvunaanyizibwa bwo bwa husband oba tobutuukiriza era okuddayo ku nsonga eri omusajja bw'aba asazeewo nti agenda kubeera n'abakyala nga bana alina okubeera nti really obuvunaanyizibwa obwo agenda kukola ki agenda butuukiriza fairly wano ensi gye tulimu n'abaana baffe bwe tuzaaliddemu ebintu by'okubeera nti simanyi taata alina abaana bana tubiwulidde bingi abaana bayomba abaana bakola ki ebintu ebyo tebabyagalira ddala bireesewo okwawukana ne mu baana ng'omwana tannaana kutuuka kukola ki maama tannaba kutuuka kunyiiga oba kukola ki kasita omwana amanya nti taata wange alina omukyalo mulala alina ne baganda bange abalala it is hard to accept. There is a lot of resentment kyekisuusa n'abaana okubeera nti n'omwana akula nga taata we akimanyi nti gy'ali abeera wali Tottenham naye nga tajja kugendayo kubanga alabanga maama we bamutreatinze unfairly by getting another person. Leave alone iffe gye twakulira okula omanyi nti muzadde waayo n'abakyala bana that's it. You know,
when we set out to have the conversation tonight, yawadde tunuulira nnyo abakyala okumma abasajja access ku baana. But now you just realize that this is just a symptom of a problem. It's not the disease. It is a symptom. If you end up ending up in that particular situation, actually there's no way you can deal with this denial of access. These other underlying factors which
exactly
come.
Yes,
sure. The problem is Mchara Aisha. The dilemma of Tujude one so far just party abakyala. Faida Ntege says if only men knew women love. When women love, they genuinely love. They shouldn't have played with our emotions. And you understand that bit. Naye obawo feeling eninga nti ku bakyala mbanga abalina endowooza abasajja tebabeera na emotions oba they don't feel. Aisha.
Yes, balina emotions, sure. Tuli abasajja nabo bitonde ngaffe abakyala balina emotions era omulama ogwatandikiddwawo ku Umma Contact ebiseera ebisinga I think ekyo mba nkyogeddeko ffe ng'abakyala n'abaami era ffenna tuli bitonde tunyiigagana. Omwami ayogedde ku kigambo kya counseling era nja kikoonako kubanga tunyiiga ne tunyiiga nnyo, tulina obusungu bungi nti ebizibu ebyaffe tubiteekawo nnyo ate ne tubiteeka mu baana baffe. We don't put our children at the center. Ebizibu byaffe ne tubiteeka ne tubikulembeza ne twerabira, yes, ne twerabira abaana baffe be tuleese ku nsi. Owulidde ate bwe tunyiiga ne tunyiiga nnyo, simanyi lwaki tetusonyiwagana. Kati ekintu ekyo ekyokuba nti tetusonyiwagana, Sheikh njagala okugamba kye kituleetedde okubeera nti abaana baffe tuba neglectings oba n'okubeera nti completely denying the other party okufuna abaana kubanga obusungu bwo n'omwami wo obukulembeza okusinga needs z'abaana bo.
Okay, barakallahu.
Yes.
JFK, unmute yourself, please. JFK, you've touched on some of the untouchable things. These are the realities that we have to deal with day in, day out. Our time is fast running. Actually, each time you start delving into one issue, another issue apparently becomes, much more relevant. JFK,
Sure. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
Nice to hear a man. Yeah. So far coming into the conversation. Yes, sir.
Yeah, sure. Sure. First of all, thank you for this topic. It's a good topic. I will ask or request that this topic is brought back at a later stage, but with a panel in the studio, both women and men. Why I say that is because we need the education. First of all, yes, but I'm saying just, yeah,
but it's fine.
But the way it would come out with a panel in the studio, it would be different. It will be more. There will be more topics, and there will be more way of handling this, because now Chance K came in and gave his point. The women took it as if he said only men come into relationship with different agendas.
Yes.
But he said, tuwasa, abantu tuwasa, oba tufumbirwa because tuina ebigendererwa. It's on both sides. Of course, when I see there's women who have brought women from Uganda, and they've married them, and they've given them papers, and after that the women disappear.
Yeah.
And in most cases, the relationship ends up, or the marriage ends up in court, where the woman accuses the man of domestic abuse, rape, and everything. It's unfortunate that Hajat Naima has come off.
No, she's back home.
But the thing I wanted to mention is men usually walk away depending on the way the relationship has broken, the way the marriage is broken. If you've called the police for the man several times, accusing the man of domestic violence, the last time that man walks out,
he won't look
of
back.
course, he won't come back, because there's a threat to, one, his criminal record, two, his career for men who are professionals, three, men don't like to see their children seeing them in a vulnerable position. Ate abakazi now, because abakazi bakyala baffe abavudde Uganda, baganda baffe muve Uganda ne tujja mwene ensi because we all know the Queen runs this country. Abakazi baina emombe gamba nti this country is run by women. What a woman says goes. I'm glad Ajat Naima has mentioned that courts have decided at the moment now they are listening to men. They've realized that men actually women are also abusers. But a few years ago, this did not happen. Men were not taken. Once a woman said the man was abusive, they did not even have to investigate. Today, there's a man in Uganda, an elderly man. He must be either near to his 80s. It's been going all around on social media. He got with this woman. They had a child. The woman told the man, your child died. Up to today, the man says, I don't believe my child died. The man is still looking for his child. That shows that men love their kids. It's the circumstances that lead us to walking away. So, togena kunka sukira buvera wabwe bin bags. Yeah, in front of my kids. Yeah, and then you see me at your doorstep. Because I know every time I'll come, you will try to humiliate me. So I stay away to keep that space. Togena kunku with the police every time I come to see my kids. And my kids see me with the police dragging me away like a criminal. And you expect me to come and be in my kids' life. Yeah. I was attending Kubanti, check achogede. Yeah. Culture is the problem. Because I think culture is a way we can revolve with times. Culture has revolved with times. Yeah. The way we used to marry back in the days is not the way we marry now. Yeah. Let's talk about now, COVID. COVID has come. People are getting married on Zoom. Yeah. People are doing their nikas on Zoom. Yeah. If we shouldn't blame culture for the things that have happened. We should blame ourselves and the way we have revolved.
Someone is saying to you, you don't have to see the woman, the children at the woman's place. Arrange a neutral place. Come for your kids, see them, and bring them back. But that is only if you are allowed to.
Yeah. So if you're allowed to have access to that. But I'm saying, before you get, most of us, like you said, the woman has an ego, the man has an ego. Yeah. How long will it take this man to break down and come to the family and say, oh, you know what? Your sister has refused me to see my kids. Can you help me and be a mediator to come see my kids? Yeah. In this country, we have how many people spend weeks, months, sometimes some of them spend years without even seeing their siblings. So in this country, it's difficult for someone to make time for you to go see your kids, to be available to pick up your kids and bring your kids for you to see in the park. Everyone is busy. So we need the woman has to have a middle ground, accept if the marriage has taken its course, and say, yeah, the marriage has taken its course. The woman does not love me anymore. The man doesn't love me anymore. But we have something in between us.
You have a child.
By the time we had this child, we were in a good place. For whatever reason, it could be financial, it could be emotional, it could be less satisfaction. Or now you're looking to go somewhere else. You're looking for something else that this man can't offer you or this woman can't offer you. It doesn't take away the fact that your child is still existing.
JFK, Chiwanuka is just joined us. I can see the men coming in last minute. It's like now you've brought the fight to the floor. Stay on, JFK, don't go away. Chiwanuka, you've just had JFK's submission. Yeah? Let me get your own text.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thanks for
Munanso nyo aweda mbuga ndi Cambria ate sino oba abike byagudde mbuga sira baba wano mumpulira sirimanyi.
Tukuulira bulungi.
Okay. Conversation eri very insightful ate nge tuyigiriza ebintu bingi naye kanjogere mu lulimi lwensinga okutegeera. Waliwo ebintu biboogerako nga nali mbirabyeko ne mbiwulira n'obbiwulira. Sigamba nti abakyala be babyokusinga oba bammi be babyokusinga, naye oludda olusinga okukaaba bwe kituuka ku baana, basajja be basinga okukaaba. Ekintu ekyo kyetaaga okwetegereza lwaki abasajja be basinga okukaaba obutalaba baana. Ekintu ekyo kese example ekintu kye nali ndabyeko ku mikwano gyange, abakyala be basunguwala n'abaana ne babatwaliramu. Ekintu ekyo twali kirabye lwaki abakyala basunguwala n'abaana n'abatwaliramu, kati ye naddira omwana n'amufuula omuggo n'alyoka kweganga gwakubisa. Waliwo omwami omu omukyala we yamuyitira poliisi nga ye namukyayi bukyayi just ayita poliisi n'agaawuuna nzita poliisi egenda okutuuka ali amusanga ali wali omwami ali kukyayi poliisi nemubuuza kino si firimu saabiraba mu firimu wabula ekintu ekyatuukawo namugamba nti otugambye abaddako nti abadde agezaako kunkuba naga nono phone call gye tulina ogambye nti akutta nti abadde aŋŋambye agenda kunkuba era mumugjeewo naye poliisi yamugamba naye mukyala omanyi nti omanyi oli mukyamu ennyumba eno kuba omwami yali yaleeta omukyala namugamba nti nyumba olabika oyagala omukyala kale ebintu byagenda biwanvu naye ne bamugamba omanyi gwe olina okuva wano so si mwami ono ennyumba toli ku nnyumba eno ennyumba wamusanga nayo gwe olina okukola ki kati njagadde kuwa
which is quite rare mu mbeera ezibaddewo abasajja
yes kubanga really omukyala yali akooye bukoyi naye kati nga biri omwami oli byayogeddeko nti abantu bawasa for convenience kwega tekiri ku side emu omwami yaleeta omukyala we naye nga omukyala ye naye bwe yafuna byayagala n'akola ki neyeefuula naye point yange eri nti community oba ne culture ebintu bino mbiraba mu kulwange nganzi observation yange eri nti culture nti abakyala bayinza n'okuba nga bakikozesa abamu okwesasuza embeera abantu gye babayisamu oba gye balaba nyaabwe nga babayisamu e Uganda kati bw'atuuka wano waliwo enjogera egamba nti bajjira ku left kati bafuna right ate neetabuka butabusi kati batambulira ku right yokka left tebajja gitambulirako
oyinza okujja nga ekibonerezo ky'oli mu kufuna si kikyo wabula
kyajjajjaawe yes kakati tovola obusungu buyinza okubanga yes busungu buli bungi nnyo naye ng'eŋŋamba ekintu ekyo twali kisalidde amagezi mu community oba counseling nebeerawo abantu before getting into marriage ne wabeerawo abantu
badde nsaba oholdinga kubanga ndaba Hajati Naima wanise omukono watebukuba nti waliwo issue that has been raised even tumuyina nga mu social worker saagala ovuewo waliwo issue nga it might be a social twina expert into that things of fear what to guiding a conversation says actually situations differ but what FK is talking about has happened to some men. Some men have lost jobs, they have lost careers, and as a result of allegations made, by their women. Hajati Naima, if you can unmute yourself, please. What do you actually responding? Kiwanuka today, watch Kiwanuka because now the voices of men are finally coming out. Hajati Naima, you've been listening in. Hello? Naima, you are unmuted, but we can't hear you. Okay, Mr. Chwanuka, agenda maso simuga Naima one then we can pick it up from there. Well, about that one he say I think the chance of Okono which are you because he had sumuru da can't kano akanyomero kati akafuse a subject of conversation.
Hello.
Hajati Naima una ze Yes, Hajati Naima.
Just a quick one. Kwa narabyo waliwo omukono omulala gwansoose. Kwekyo mwami Kiwanuka kyayogedde. Bannaye mbadde njagala just kugumya abasajja nti unless ng'omukazi what is it wamwassaulting oba waliwo evidence police na biki that has been involved in your case. Omukyala bw'agenda ending up mu court ng'omaking an application omukyala bamubuuza awandike statement detailing exactly domestic violence gwe yasuffering'ga. So just kuwa abasajja that information to omukyala just ogamba nti there was domestic, although there are different forms of domestic violence anyway.
Yeah, but if it is psychological now, how do you measure that?
Although even if that's the thing, if there is domestic violence of any form, it does not deny the father contact. I don't know whether that makes sense. You as a mother may not be involved, but they will get someone else to be like a middle person or someone who can support that process. So techina kuba ye mama, like obviously
you as a social worker, is there any way of talking a woman out of stopping a man from having access? Leave alone the other, because they are normally the mediation, then you can go into a court order or a court assisted whatever order. Is there a way as social workers that if you come into the particular situation of conflict, you can actually influence a woman to allow the man to have access to the child without going through the formal processes?
Obviously, if we have powers up, we don't have those powers sort of to force the woman to sort of allow that contact. But what we normally tell the men who are really seriously seeking to have a relationship with their children, that they need to seek legal advice. That's the only way you get access to your child. Or if you have a very good family member who can talk to the woman, yes, we don't have those powers, we cannot force. But if there has been issues of emotional distress or emotional harm to the child, yes, we can obviously we can intervene in a way, and obviously what they call child in need. Nituba nga tusobola okukolagana n'abazadde okumakinga sure nti ono omwana, this child has that sort of relationship. So I just wanted to comment on the fact that these days court don't take nonsense. Honestly, they will tell them
to go face value. But Hajat Naima, before I let you go, but we are wrapping up now. We've really gone over our time. It's suddenly now getting interesting as we start crashing on the real issues now surrounding the problem itself. Now, what the issue and where I think it was Farid, I think you Muraihan, who was talking about there should be emotional support for women. But if there is emotional support, then the women need emotional support. I think that was the point that was raised. The women need emotional support. If you provide that support with that, most women can see beyond the rage. But you see that at least from what I've seen, whatever shelters for women, I've never heard of a shelter for men. Is it? And this is the question I put before. Is it assuming that men don't have emotions, or is there support for men that would actually come in, or men don't speak about these things?
There is support for men, to be honest. There is always support, not as much as that for women. Nayenga, there is support. If there's that thing of ego. The men don't normally come out to say Mnanga Mchala has been traumatizing me or what, but there are women who have really abused men and have assaulted men, and we know that.
There is a woman I know of that threw herself down on the stairs and went to the GP with bruises, claiming her husband had pushed her down the stairs. Now, in the case of investigating such a case, how do you even start, dealing with a case like that? Proving that the man wasn't responsible, Goliath and the bruises.
Obviously, it's very I'm
just throwing that to you because it has come up. I have to go back to Chiwanuka.
Yeah, okay. Chenade just
abami bati okubasekerera n'okubayita abanafu munayinza obito munafunenga nerwanye kusinda kakafira ijja kufa migo gya Chiwanuka back. Hajat Naima, thank you very much for that. Chiwanuka sebo okomye your back.
Yes, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum. Why to zikanso?
Masha Allah. Topic eno nze sijja separating ana culture kubanga ebintu bino byonna bw'obitunula mu line mu bitambula ya culture kubanga abakyala boogera nnyo ekigambo ekyo nti abasajja batulekawo n'abaana kati ne bakozesa omwana oyo okumudinayinga okulaba kitaawe naye nga ne mu nsi muno mwe tuli zirina kalica zaazo abazungu awasa mukazi we n'amulekawo n'awasa omukazi omulala naye the fact is nti balina abaana ebiseera ebisinga tebagenda na mu kooti if there was no abuse kubanga omukwano gujja ne guggwawo tewali omukwano gw'enkomeredde gwa mwanawo between maama n'omwana ne taata n'omwana ogwo teguliko naye omuntu gw'ensanze obusanzi means nti nsobola okuwa omukwano gwange gwe nnina at that very moment once that mukwano guganye if I walk away it shouldn't be marriage meant from hell kwegate if no wearing your heart to your sleeve everybody to see nti you are hurt this and the other ekitegeera notandika okukozesa abaana nze ngamba culture playing a good game lwansonga nti abantu bano n'abasajja bennyini era bwekitunira culture era kituforcinga ffe obutalaba nti tugenda oba mu makooti ekyo nkitwala ku culture
kubanga era waliwo abasajja abakaabye eriiso limu omukwano gumuyitirira n'akaabye eriiso alina wajja okukafiira mwafune bwakimye
kati kino ekintu lwaki nkyogera mbasajja nti kirabika enamba eweze singa eno case ebadde case study nti eri emu naye namba bwe tuba tuli ku forum eno nga buli omu wuli awo obujulizi nti buli concrete nti waliwo ekyaliwo kitegeeza nti abasajja enamba nnene n'abakazi enamba nnene abakola ki abakaaba kati kalica lwaki njisiba ku kintu kino nti abasajja Uganda omukazi wakugoba ku mwana ewaffe nti abasajja to walk away from family abamu bawalking away olw'embeera eyo obusungu obutasonyiwagana n'alekawo abaana tukirina ekyo gyekiri ewaffe kakati wano nsonyi kubanga twakulira mu ekyo ekintu omukazi akugobye oluusi toyagala n'emukwano gw'amanye kati okugenda mu kooti that's a big deal kitegeera nti ate ngende mu kooti abaana bali babaagala balikola ki bali mmanya naye singa tutegeera ne tunoonya middle ground ne tumanya okay tuli mu foreign land yes omusajja nange nina right yes nkola nina sente nsobola okwetuusaako yes naye tulina abaana wakati wano how can we meet in the middle omusajja yagenda n'afuna akazi muteesenga abantu mukole ki omusajja oba mukazi gwe kabalabe nga temuyise mu makooti kubanga ekyo nze ndi sure nti abasajja bannayuganda balabika tebali nnyo willing okugenda mu kooti to fight to see okay gye bali aba fighting and those are small numbers otherwise if it was the case believe me this forum it won't be like focusing on like kids being denied to see their fathers kati nze my feeling nti abantu abawasa oba bali mu bufumbo yes forum zino nnungi nnyo naye what happened after this
Stella Wandera, I think, wraps it very nicely. She says people need to be guided on what to look out for when choosing partners and regularly go for marriage counseling. Actually, like especially with Christians, right? I'm counseling like a month before the marriage, serious, and we have suggested it even within the Muslim community. Now we start having this. Oftentimes you see them going, getting advised and built up and whatever. With men, you don't see musajja yabangaga nti musajja ayizulu ujja kutomerereyo ekyo nasangayo and you just go ahead. And I think we need to go down this. But now, given the other factors, Stella, that might work in the normal circumstances. In the abnormal circumstances where we are going to marry for convenience, as you've had, where unfortunately you play with people's emotions by presenting a case of love when in actual sense you are just looking for a path to the next life, then it becomes absolutely difficult. And then, the players are there. And like Sajid Sarah says, their players are smart. They know which words to use and the words will just ring bells. And all of us are struggling in one way or another. Emotionally is looking for some comfort. And then you bring sweet words to the ears. Yes, I'll go to Istiqama and then I'll come to Sophia. What answer conversation? I want to wrap it with you as we wrap up now because we've gone over time really. Isma in the view there. I'm sorry for keeping you that long, but I think you can see where the conversation is going. Istiqama, Talha, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa
barakatuh. I don't know if I should use Uganda if it's possible.
Well, yeah, perfectly fine. Looks like it at the bitter end. The problem is with this global conversation, you're always involving so many people. You might be surprised that there are those who don't necessarily understand Uganda. But as Sheikh Kakawea says, people need to seek Allah's guidance in these matters. Go ahead, please. Use whatever you feel comfortable with. But you know, within this good trouble, you can do it.
Barakallahu fikum. Mutufu, I feel sad within my heart about beyond ensonga kugamba nti oba amateeka oba ensiigamba bweti. And we need to look at this thing as regional side nti ojja kwesinkananga amaaso ga Allah si birungi ku ekyo ky'okoze mu kulingiriza omusajja omukazi ku lw'omwana. Allah yabagambira mu Quran, and of course kubaawukanye naga nti wala tudarra walidatun biwaladiha wala mauludun lahu biwaladihi. Omukyala talina kunyigirizibwa ku lwa mwana gwe yazaala yadde gwe baamuzaalira. And linguistically mauludun lahu kagamba kakulu bannanga abakyala abaana baffe mauludun lahu gwe bamuzaalidde tolina kumunyigiriza lwa mwana we. Subhanallah, igwe okuba yafulumira n'abaana n'owekwekeyo oba n'omutwala omugamba nti yafa. Ntukola omugamba nti yafa. Wallahi nze nina omukyala gwe na stoppinga khitba olw'okunyumiza nti ex we talabanga mwana we, amusaba omulaba netamulabanga, nemugamba nange buto bujja okunkola ekitegeeza nti awoliti talinga gwe goli nga no I cannot nenkita byakomaawo. And that was the thing that stopped everything. Kimu kyali kirungi naye by the fact nti taso oli kabeere mubi atya ye taata w'omwana ono unless mugamba tamunoonya kumutuusako obulabe, which is impossible. So Sheikh, ensonga tulina ogitunuya ku level ey'okuseekinga obusungu bwa Allah singa tugitereezezza. Tolina kunyigiriza mukyala omwana gwe yazaala omusajja olw'omwana we.
The problem is abantu singa if we were God fearing na zino embeera zonna oluusi twabadde tuzifuukamu, by the time we get to a situation where we end up becoming who we are, not busting out, it's the loss of that godliness. Kakati omuntu amaze okulusinga godliness ogenda okumugamba nti ate omunyumiza Allah. I have seen situations where a woman ng'amaze okutabuka ogenda n'omugamba nti qala Allahu qala Rasulullahi n'ayagala amukasukire 30 minutes later nitoka kimukuba n'ajjudde and then they try to turn back. But for a person at a lot of the time, the godliness is lost in terms of anger when the issues happen. For example, the circumstances that have led to the disagreement. Love will. There are times you fall in love with someone only to realize no guy Arabi nari intunurawa. Nari ndaba watching or whatever. Now, running out of that, where you have invested hugely emotionally, but it is actually the verbal emotion that you have created. When you miss that would become now the emotional abuse. Now, a lot of times you go down that route. For you to come out of it is difficult. So, but then issue that would be the best case scenario. But a lot of times, around the time of conflict, people are no longer thinking about God. Go ahead, Shaitan.
After time, why is she still denying him access to mwana we? Okay, wali busungu atenga nekuba kwaukana tunakwawukana farihuna bima'rufin aw sarihuna bima'ruf aw farihuna bima'ruf, but kiganya muganyo kule okwawukana mu bulungi. But I believe tugotoka obusungu bwo obutawola bwa kikulachi noba nti yes, you're not going to get back with him, but guno musayi gwe don't have to deny him access ku mwana we. At least what oyagala musajja, but tia Allah gament however much sagala musajja no kulaba mwana ono naye Allah ngena kumuddawa kunaku lw'enkomerero. Ate tulina obuzibu Sheikh Kassim nti olwayo tuyambisiza amateeka amali az'amaanyi okuba tuli az'amaanyi abantu. Ojja kulaba nti otunulira linguistics mu Quran, hatta omukyala watasobola omusajja ali feel gamba okay tosobola kubeera in terms nange discussing nga tugenda okulabira omwana ono nga tuli fenna, then kamuteke munasi nga akuyonsa najja muyonsa tali gwe okiba kino nja kufuna omulago gw'ensasula if you're not willing to play part of it. But still wesikana omukyala ateekawo ebintu tutu musajja ali bwati ne bwati, so I'm denying access ku mwana we, amusigaze, then gobere out.
Right. A question here now, there's a question that has come to me privately, which says, how about those women who try their best for the fathers to play a part in their kids' life, but the father doesn't bother, and they even try to hate the woman when she did I lose that? Sorry about that. The father doesn't bother, they even try to hate the women when she tries to involve family members. I mean, that is a case that has come up already. That's a message sent to me privately in my inbox. These things happen, and it's not like we have said, we are not really throwing all the blame on women. And from the examples that have come up, including the submission by camps, there are situations where the men have been responsible. But in a situation where you have decided that you as a couple, husband, wife, you have decided that between yourselves it can no longer work out, do not let children become victims of your circumstances. Create an enabling environment that would allow these children to be able to access either parents without any impediments. The problem actually, even in situations where parents have remained with access, there are situations I've seen personally. Ngolawo omuntu yawukana n'ebbanga ebigambo byayogera ku mwana yayogera ku yali bbaawe in front of the children creates a picture, because these children have grown up here. Their ability sometimes bategeera nnyo balengera wala okusinga ffe eri ate badengula gye twakulamu. And for you to say a word like that, interpretation and translation actually carries a different meaning, which actually can have life-changing reasons or impacts in terms of that. Sophia, wande wakomezawo mkono, I'll just bring you back in. Sheikh Hassim barakallahu fikum. I think we must be wrapping up now.
All right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yeah, both we can't. There are some men who are irresponsible, and there are those ones who want to take responsibility. But there is a situation of one of the lady I used to work with. He had this man and they had 2 children, but he never even bothered to send a penny, nothing. And then the woman was trying, but this man was not even bothered, and he was fathering more children. Until when he was taken to court and they found out, he started saying, oh, those are not even my kids. They had to do a DNA test and to find out they're his kids. But what makes you, when you know this is your wife and you reach to that extent because you don't want to put money, and they found out he was working, then they started deducting money from his account. He ended up running back to his country because he's thinking he has fathered very many children and now he can't look after them. We need to tell our children, you need to be responsible. You can't just go fathering kids and you don't want to even look after them. And in our culture, it's there. Some people just want to give birth and they leave the women to look after the children. No, this is it's 2 people's job. You can't leave a wife or your ex to look after the children. And then afterwards they say they've denied us access to the kids. It's not fair. That's just what I wanted to say.
Barakallahu fikum. And Raihan says, I think people need to speak their truth. The heart is real, but you need to tell the kids he remains their father. I think that's really, really a good place to be. Istiqama says women continue to hurt those men in the countries that hear you and not them, but Allah will be there for us. Faidan Tege says, oh, he might even forget his point. At which point now we go back to Chance. We have been all over the place, but we have come back to you because you opened up the can of worms and you see where the conversation suddenly brought out the men who were hiding in the background to come and be part of the conversation, including those who have joined very late, Farouk S. and Fahad Kabui, who
thanks, KK. This forum is very great. It's a therapy. We may be just talking, but it's a very good therapy for our community, and people come out and talk their emotions. I have very few points as we wind up. It was was it JFK? He talked about the offshore and onshore marriages, and these have their challenges. what I mean by offshore or onshore is like you're marrying from Uganda or you opt to marry from within here. There are many challenges. That can be a topic for some other time, and it's because of these challenges that we are ending up with these breakups. But the way forward, I would think, let's stop the blame game. We're not all perfect, but if you're in a marriage, try to evaluate your marriage, see how you can add value. And I'm a campaigner of not women or men breaking down their marriages because of misunderstandings. If you can seek for help, go for a therapy, I'm sure your marriage will be rebranded and you'll be on the road. And what I would suggest to fellow community or platform members is that let's try to pick things which can improve our lives from these topics we talk about. And I think we'll be having a better community in future. Yeah,
Thank you very, very much. I think really that's for me, from the conversations tonight, it seems very clear that this is a topic that has not been adequately addressed. We've just touched the top of it. We need to come back, like JFK was suggesting, having a panel that is already pre-selected so that we can go to them. But of course, our conversation, the way the conversation runs, is just natural. We just end up opening up a lot more, and that has actually given us a lot more leeway. And without a doubt, I think that's definitely the way to go. But ultimately, we need to be thinking about what other. Zahira says, I think let's heal our traumas before we go into marriages. Well, that's a good one. And Zahira, I was trying to get you at least to hear from you. I've not heard you from before. This is the first time I've seen you in the conversation, but for some reason, I was wondering whether you are at work and therefore unable to speak. But it would be good just to get your own take, especially with your particular story on your mother never being around and therefore not knowing whether she fought hard enough to be able to be there in your life. If you can, perfectly fine. If you cannot, then it will be understandable. But it would have been good. You are raising very important issues here. Or you are at work. That's understood. Thank you very, very much. I'll give you the last word because you're quite in the background and trying to. What? I've seen UMS UK. I didn't know who that is. It would have been very good to hear from them as well as a first timer, unless they're just logging in with a different name. Hasfaka all the way in the US. US, we've just heard, I think, from one person who was Catherine. I don't know if we've had anybody else from the US. Let's give you the second last word and then we just wrap up. You've been listening into this conversation, Hasfa, and we are looking for a way forward around this. First of all, maybe actually it's not even before we go to the way forward. It's what makes women get to a point of not wanting children to have to see their fathers. Hasfa, are you there? Hasfa, are you there? Okay, I'll go to UMS. Hasfa is in hiding. UMS UK, please unmute yourself. Would be good to hear from you very briefly. UMS, I was giving you the last word to hear from you. And Julian, I tried to get Julian as well. He didn't even text back to say whether they're at work. Julian, do you mind unmuting yourself, please? Hi, Julian. Okay, it's clear. Haji Mutoya Ingide late, Nefahad Kabubi, and Farouk S. You came in late, but I'm sure you've touched the tail end of the conversation. How we can do. Definitely, I really think this is a topic that we'll need to come back to. We reformat it to get the breakup before we even get to what leads people. Families or relationships. Actually, I think an interesting point that also rose. There's no marriages, is it? Fahad Kabubi, I've just seen your hand, and yes, please go ahead. Unmute yourself. Fahad, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Basi ogiyingidde almost efuluma mu paaka.
Giyingidde ngifuluma naye mbadde nzija ku mulimu, so I was getting ready for work. Naye my view yange genda kubeera basing on the experience gye nalabako abantu abamu gye baayitamuko. And this was the experience. At the beginning of this year I was in Uganda. Nengendako eyo mu kyalo. Baayinayo meeting y'omukolo. And this was a family member, muntu mukulu, yazaala omwana, naye omwana atuuse okukola ki? Okwanjula. Ng'agenda kuleeta omwami. Naye nga fe abaali bagenze mu kyalo, we ended up nga tuli mu meeting. Naye mu meeting eno, taata w'omugole yali awo nga ayita mu bantu okumusonderako, like kubanga omwami yakola ki? Taata w'omwana yategeka abako gye bagenda okujja. But what was very interesting, kati fe abaali tetumanyi kigenda mu maaso, we found out nti omuwala talina ssente nnyingi, naye ng'abaana yamala ne yeekwatakwata n'afunayo ku ssente n'ajja n'addaabiriza ennyumba ya taata we. And this is a child eyali nga enkolagana ye ne taata we yali yakendeera, naye olw'omukolo yakola ki? Yatetenkanya addaabiriza ennyumba ya taata we, omukolo bulabike bulungi. Naye fe abaali basonderako taata w'omuwala, tuba tuli mu meeting, naye tugenda okunotisinga nga waliwo ebitakwatagana because omuwala yabadde yakoze bajeti ye ne maama we, nga bajeti yakuba nti agenda kuliisa bako na biki ebyo, naye ate taata obutaagala kuswala, naye ayagala kulaga nti alina kyakoze ki? Kyakoze. Naye nga omuwala teyasindika representative, so kati tumanyi kye bakoze, we only assuming naye nga twetaaga omuwala abeerewo naye atubuulire. Naye ebyo byonna byonna okubeerawo, abo ne batandika okwebuuza lwaki omuwala taliiwo. So they ended up calling omuwala balabe ekigenda mu maaso, and she wasn't picking up. Naye nga bw'omanyi abantu b'e Kampala abamu tebaagala, bo bakitwala nti babayisaamu amaaso, bavudde gye bavudde bazzaawo okubeererawo omuwala, but they don't know the nitty-gritties ezibaddewo. Sometimes ebintu ebimu abantu b'e Uganda batera obbikuuma bireme ku going into public. Kati abantu ne batabukira omuwala, naye mu kumutabukira fe abaali bawuliriza, we got to find out there is more in the background than what their eyes can see. Nti omuwala yakwatagana ne maama we, ne beesonda ne baddaabiriza ewaka ate nga bagenda kuliisa abako bokka. Ati nga taata
kitegeera bulungi okuliisa abako bokka, meaning abagenyi ba muzeeyi ab'okukyalo bo tebajja kulya,
tebagenda, muzeeyi alina okafiiramu.
Banakikola batya? Banaatwalira abali mu nnyumba, then abasigadde ebweru.
I know it was all confusing. Fena tebikwatagana, you know. Naye omwana ne bakubira omwana, omuwala ne bamuyombesa awo. Omanyi abantu b'e Kampala sometimes they don't want to look for the facts. Batandikirawo mu kuyomba bikiwa bityo. Omuwala n'akubira maama we n'avuma abantu bizi lelelelele. But we got to find out nti taata w'omwana teyali mu bulamu bw'omwana okukula, oba ekitegeera. Okusinziira maama engeri gye yavumamu abantu awo wonna ku ssimu, n'akakkanya abantu bonna ng'abantu b'omukyalo bamanyi. So the dad yali alina issues ne maama w'omwana kuva mu buto, so teyaliiwo, oba ekitegeera. Kati basing on topic ya leero, kyengezaako okugamba nti sometimes abasajja bwe baba bakula oba mu buvubuka bwabwe bagenda ne bazaala abaana nga tebali ready. N'abamu n'aba nga tabeerawo mu bulamu bwa mwana, tasupportinga mukyala. And these women, omanyi Allah ine ngejja kulamu abakyala bano. Abakyala, they can be the most understanding creatures you can come across. Oyinza okuba nga toyina, but you're there time-wise, omubeererawo. Ate ng'osobola.
No rocking ku baana.
Yes, Allah yatuwa omumwa naye ng'osobola okujja n'omunnyonnyola nti bannaaye siina ssente, because omukyala oyo taata w'omwana teyamubeererawo nnyo as she expected, naye omukyala oyo yasobola okutetenkanya n'araising omwana oyo. So sometimes omukazi asobola okutetenkanya n'araising omwana nga toyina financially, because no one has a guarantee sente y'enkya. Leero zisobola okubeerawo, enkya sobola okuggwawo, but beererawo omwana. Ffe twasomeranga twalabanga abazadde nga ajja na kiwagu ky'amenvu nga ssente tewali naye nga abaddewo. So nze kyenyinza okugamba nti ate abasajja b'e Kampala oba abasajja baakuno abamu tebabeererawo bakyala, at the same time ne babeera n'amalala. Ne bakkakkanya n'abakyala, kibula obusungu ne bujja nga bukula, omukyala n'aba nga omutwala nga atategeera. By the end of the day, omwana aba wuwo.
Naye kati Kabubi, that is in the case where actually the woman has allowed access. In a situation where omukyala n'akozesa akasoso ak'okukuma access to the child. Whatever the man is trying so hard, working hard to as the wife not allowing, or the ex-wife not allowing them.
I think abakyala ngabo in most cases, nze bemmanyi, they would love taata okubeera mu bulamu bw'omwana, naye taata olina okusooka omanye your place at the moment. Sooka omanye, because oyinza okuba nga olina wrongs z'okola. W'oba ozze, at least acknowledge wrongs ze wakola. Omukyala ayinza okuba nga alina wrongs ze yakola naye naawe olina wrongs, tewabeererawo, but acknowledge. If he needs apologizing, apologize, because bano bantu, they can understand. Naye some men, they don't want to take responsibility. Bo bajja buze, I have a right to mwana wange. Yes, you have a right. Naye ono ayinza okuba nga akyalina obusungu. Naye nze mba ndowooza, if it was me, mba ngenda kujja, like if there is anything kyemba nakola, take responsibility until, you know what, I wasn't there in the last 10 years. Probably you may not have to explain yourself. Naye take full responsibility for not being there. Omuntu omutuuze omugambe, now I want to be there, what can I do? It's tekigenda kapenengerawo straight away. It could be a step by step, opportunity for you okuba nga otandika okujja mu bulamu bw'omwana. Naye abantu baveeri, just because you have a right, you start to demand. Naye oba tewaliiwo for 10-15 years and you just expect olw'okuba oli taata w'omwana obeerera okyobola abakazi batuuka n'akikulemesa lwakuba alaba omanyiira. But it could be two ways. Mulimu abakazi nga bo bakoowu nga ye tayagala ojja obeere mu bulamu bwa muntu.
But quite often what happens is around weddings, and it's actually weddings. Always say example of wedding, because wedding normally a point of revenge. Traditionally, you'd really want a child to be, like handed over formally. And the only way to do that is with the presence of a father, which father probably you had denied access. Again,
yeah, but I think in life, omuntu yena, you need to understand the situation and olabe how you can find a solution to navigate through that situation going forward. If it means taking responsibility nga tata, you take it. If it means taking responsibility nga mama, you take it. At the end of the day, ono mwana, sometimes you have to put your needs on the side. Olabe how best ongeri gy'oyinza okugonzaamu embeera mugitwale forward in an amicable way.
Brilliant. Okay, I apologize for those who have had to stay very long. Thank you very, very much for your contributions. I think definitely we've gone almost an hour over the time simply because that's what the conversation was. It was difficult to just go to but I think these are the issues that we are going through, like as a community, as families. These are the real issues. And the fact that now we are coming out to start talking about this, as I think it was Fahad or Chance who said, these are healing sessions without even acknowledging, without even knowing. Someone talks about something that you have been going through and you thought you are alone in it. By going, coming into public without the specifics of each individual case, someone addresses the issues that you think you have been struggling with. And this is really what makes a difference. It's only when we talk about these things that we can find solutions. There's a problem identified is a problem half solved. That's the first way. That's where we start from. Our egos, it's time to ban those egos and come face to face with the realities that we are facing to be able to address these issues if we are actually looking for a better future. This is Come Let's Talk with me, Kassim Kayiira, our global community conversation. It's been brilliant tonight. We started with the women, letting it out all. And then when the men when they started, they couldn't stop. Thank you very much. I can only wish you a very good night. Ma salam aw fi amanillah. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala next week, we might actually have to come back to this topic, but in a different way, looking at the two couples, because now the concentration was a lot more in terms of the children and access to the children, but it might be about that emotional aspect. How do we prepare ourselves to fall in love, probably, especially in the West, where we are dealing with specifics or specific conditions? What Farida Antegi was playing about people's emotions, not playing with the emotions of the women. When you want particular things, your target is different, but you go in a different way. We will find a way of addressing this. These are painful experiences that men are struggling with there. But it's not only men. There are women who have brought men from Uganda, although those are rare cases, but it has happened and they have gone on. Thank you very much. I can only say have a very good night. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. See you next week.